Alright, what's going on YouTube? Second round of Hidden Cup 4 qualifiers. This is the first series I'll be casting from that. Miguel versus Lix. And we are going to have a best of 5 over here. So the settings are very similar to what we have seen in the previous round. Here is the civilization draft. So Aztecs and Italians are the global bands. Vikings, Franks, Lithuanians, Khmer, Tatars, Portuguese, and Cumans were picked by Miguel, and he lost Vikings to the snipe of Lix. And Lix will be playing with Chinese, Malians, Mayans, Celts, Incas, and Indians, lost Japanese to a snipe. Maps will be looking like Miguel picked Island and Gold Rush and banned Slopes. Lix picked Cross and Hideout and banned Bay. So, because Miguel picked Islands and the fact that Lix lost his only pure water save, it seems like we're actually going to have a landing on that map. This is also live casted on Twitch, which means that in this case, we'll probably have downtimes in between games. That's something that you probably want to be prepared for, as the first game has already been launched up. We're waiting for a spectator delay, so in case you've been watching my YouTube exclusive casts from Hidden Cup 4, you may have noticed that, in many cases, we're just speeding through Dark Age. We don't really have downtimes in between games. In this case, there will be downtimes in between games. Probably not a lot, but 2 or 3 minutes at least is likely, because of, the games actually being live casted instead of recorded games. So, with that in mind, we are going to go into Arabia, and the civilization picks are of no surprise. So, let me show that to you. So, if I turn off Capture Age over here, you should be able to see Miguel versus Lix. And we have a Franks versus Chinese play over here. So this is two very traditional civilizations for Arabia. What I like here is Chinese a little bit more for Lix, because I think it gives you a little more versatility. So whereas Franks is sort of a one-dimensional, or at least very heavily leaning towards cavalry type of a civilization, Chinese is a lot more versatile, so it can have very good cavalry, it can have very good archers. So overall, I feel like I like Lix's civilization selection here a little more. He will also save Mayans for potentially Gold Rush, so he picked Chinese and Mayans, potentially two of the best Arabia civs. Miguel will be playing Franks, so we'll see what Lix has on his mind. I would think that Lix could play something like Scouts into Archers, whereas Miguel might need to play Scouts and Skirms or something related in terms of build order. And with that, 8 seconds left from the countdown, and we will be jumping into the next game over here. Capture Age will launch up as well, and we will be taking a look into the second round of Hidden Cup 4 qualifiers. I don't know if there's actual prize money to this round already. Oops, we don't have a scoreboard. Give me a moment, and we need to bring that scoreboard up. So yeah, now we have a scoreboard. Boom. So, welcome to Arabia over here. Miguel will be playing Franks in red on the left side, right side. Well, it's not really the right side, it's actually the northern part of the map, as the two players are very close to each other, is Lix in blue. So notice that, look at where Lix's pigs are at. It's actually up here on the front, and it is basically halfway in between the bases of the two players. This is going to be an interesting one to take a look at, because neither of the players will be expecting the opponent to be this close. So Miguel, having his TC over here, he will be scouting for Lix over here. And Lix, with this TC position, he'll be scouting for his opponent somewhere around over here. But I can tell you, it's going to be hard for them to find the opponent in this one. So if either of them wants to lame, that seems somewhat tough, because by the time you find your opponent, it's going to be too late. But I don't think that any of these players will lame here in the first game. There's just no motivation for them. This is going to be a very close series, to be honest, because the thing is that both of these players are actually shining a little more in 2v2s and team games. But both of them are very good 1v1 players as well. The thing is that I feel like the map draft actually favors Lix a little bit. So Hideout and Gold Rush are both maps that I would give to him. Islands is something that's tricky, but we have seen how devastating Lix can be. on islands. So I would say that I'm going 3-1 for Lix over here, because I feel like Miguel, we talked about him a lot on stream before. I feel like he lost a little bit of a step with Definitive Edition compared to his previous self. He's slowly regaining his confidence, his old shape, so he's getting better and better and getting back there. But still, I feel like Lix has had some very, very good performances recently in tournaments, and I think he's a more likely candidate to advance to the next round. I think Lix is also the higher seed, but I can't confirm that. Anyways, we will have all 3 deer pushed in here by Miguel. I think Lix is doing the same thing as well, even though the deer are really just unwilling to cooperate for the time being. That's actually a pretty bad house for Lix over there. This would be much, much better off over here. But look at this. If he was this crossing off, then he will basically be walling to this forest, and there's a chance that Miguel will wall there as well. So they might actually share a forest. They're so, so close. And as I said, especially now that everybody's pushing deer, the players will have absolutely no idea where the opponent is at. And Miguel is just scouting his own base. And I think the only reason why he's going to find Lix here is because he will find this gold mine. And he's not actually scouting Lix or over here. He's just looking for his own resources, and he thinks that he's over here, so Lix has to be somewhere around over here, I guess. He's just sneakily looping around, and now he sees the primary stone, and Miguel is probably like, hey, my opponent is very, very close over here. This is an extremely important piece of information for him. He knows exactly where his opponent is at. So, boar being brought in by Lix as both players pushed in, I think, all of their deer but one. So both players pushed in 3 deer, and that means that the second board is actually pretty late for both players because they just weren't in the need of actually pushing those in. Lix had a lot of voyage idle time. If you take a look at that, 240 voyage idle time at this stage of the game is actually pretty bad for Lix. So apparently he's having a rough start over here, 253 already. The 32 seconds TCL time is actually pretty nice with Chinese, but you really have to consider that voyage idle time to be a huge difference. Do you think they have to drush when so close together? I don't think they have to drush. I think the tricky thing is that when you're drushing, like, you don't know at the beginning that you are so close, and you can look at what Lix is doing. He's looking for his opponent here. And this is what I was talking about. Even if Lix thinks about, hey, I could drush, he doesn't know where his opponent is at, and he's looking for his opponent here. Because it would be straightforward that if I'm north, then my opponent is going to be south. And he's not there. So, yeah, that's actually pretty unlucky for Lix. It was also very lucky for Miguel that he bumped into this stone. Otherwise, he would have been just as much lost as Lix were. But anyways, Fuel Age coming in here. It's a 19 pop Fuel for Miguel. So he wants to go for some very, very fast scouts over here. And we will have what is about a 20 pop equivalent, I would say, for Lix over here. Anyways, Lix losing his scout over here to the TC5 for Miguel. That's actually the scary part about not finding your opponent, believe it or not. Because the thing is that if you're not finding your opponent, then you will just be completely wandering around with no idea where your opponent is at, and then you accidentally run into his TC. So if you have a good idea where your opponent's TC is at, you will pay attention, you know, not to lose your scout. But if you have absolutely no idea where the opponent is at, you will just potentially lose your scout over there. That's something that, once again, is somewhat unfortunate for Lix, especially because this seems like we're going to have a scout war. So the fact that he already lost one scout and his opponent has a full HP Frankish scout, or at least more or less full HP Frankish scout, is actually extremely helpful. Lix trying to wall himself up over here. We haven't talked about the maps of the players, but Lix is a pretty questionable gold, I would say. The thing is that it's at the back, however, it's not really easily wallable. As long as this is only scouts from Miguel, Lix can just wall to that gold mine and he's going to be fine. However, if Miguel mixes in some skirms or potentially archers, which isn't impossible, even though archers would be somewhat unlikely from Franks, but skirmishers are very, very possible from him, then this gold mine could be very problematic for Lix. Here comes the stable for him, and same thing for Miguel, who isn't really bothering walling himself off, to be honest. Did some houses over here and there, but other than that, he's playing pretty much open base here in this one, as the first spearman comes out from Lix to kind of close this gap. For now, Lix will probably try to wall this one off over here, and here come the scouts. Let's see if they can actually intercept that Voyager. Oh no, they will run into the Spearman instead. So, Miguel eats a huge Spearman hit over there, and Lix is actually playing with a lot of Spearman. I think he has to. His base is so open currently, and he's behind in terms of scout numbers that he kind of has to play with Spearman. And oh boy, that's actually very bad for Lix. He's drawing the Spearman away to chase these scouts, but his Voyager over here will be found by the other scout of Miguel. And there is more scouts coming in here, so that's almost guaranteed a one Voyager lost for Lix. Tries to quick wall that wheel in, but that's just not gonna happen. That is a Voyager dead over there. And there's two more scouts alive. So if you look at the eco upgrades, they're absolutely even. And the Chinese player should still have a small eco lead thanks to the fact that he's Chinese. However, the fact that he lost one Voyager already, he's not fully Void, whereas his opponent is able to slowly Void himself. He doesn't have to commit much to this, and he can just run around with Frankish scouts is actually huge, and he may actually find a couple of Voyagers over here as well, as he could intercept those two scouts. I think he even had the hill advantage in this one. Yoinks one from Lixen. Miguel is looking really sharp in this one. Lix looking really sloppy, to be honest. Because it is one thing that Miguel is playing well in this one, but this is a very rough start for Lix. He has had a lot of idle time for his Voyagers, even in Dark Age. Had a rough moment in scouting, obviously that was pretty unfortunate for him overall. But right now, the KD is 5-1, and that includes two Voyagers killed from Lix. Another one here could be intercepted, in fact there is two, and the Spearmen are too far behind to chase down those scouts. So, because the scout went down from Lix here, if Miguel just goes over here with his scouts and he's going that way, he will kill two Voyagers unless Lix quick was these. The Spearman will be here in time to help. Oh, look at that micro from Miguel, that's beautiful! He's using one scout to draw away the Spearman, and he was able to poke down one Voyager with that. That was an absolutely outstanding micro here from Miguel. And as I said, Miguel is slowly getting his old shape back. This is sort of the old Miguel that we have been seeing, and now the scouts almost break in here, as Lix will be quick walling that Voyager in, so for now the scouts won't be able to get inside. However, what Lix could try, or Miguel could try to do is just keep these scouts here, so that the Voyager can't actually re-wall this part of the wall. If these scouts break in, I feel like Lix is going to die. Because 5 scouts here would be way too much to handle, and if you look at the resources for Miguel, the thing is that he's getting close to clicking up to Castle Age here, whereas Lix is barely able to keep up with the scout numbers, let alone actually progress towards Castle Age. So this is looking really bad right now for Lix. And when I proposed the free one in the favor of Lix, I assumed that on land maps he's going to be superior, but it seems like he's gonna have a sloppy start over here. Truth being told, I feel like this is actually not the Lix that we have seen in previous tournaments, so he might not be warmed up properly, but his game here so far has been really sloppy. So, anyways, Miguel has been punishing him really well, and there is going to be archers mixed in here, which could make sense. The thing is that you can actually deny revolving, you could get a couple of crossbows out, and potentially harass that wood line, so the options are there. Other side, in fact, it's going to be a double crossbow switch. The thing is that you will actually go for a couple of knights still here with Miguel. And the thing is that because you're so close, you will be able to go for a forward siege workshop. In fact, in this map, if you're this close, you gotta go for a forward siege workshop. It's not going to be skirms, and the reason why it's not going to be skirms is because crossbows are better against spikes. Like, the thing is that you absolutely get nothing with skirms other than actually being able to deal with archers. But if your opponent doesn't have archers, your own archers are way better. Anyways, Lix is actually not that much behind in terms of Castle Age timing, sees the ranges, we'll see if he's going to react to that one himself. Remember that because he took a pretty significant beating to his eco, lost 3 Voyagers, that means that his transition is going to be a little bit harder for skirmishers or his own archers than it is for Miguel. And the thing is that Frankish crossbows aren't that bad. In fact, Frankish crossbows I think are very decent. They don't have Thumb Ring, I believe. Obviously they will become obsolete in Castle Age, or Imperial, but the crossbows are completely fine in Castle, and you can actually ride that bus and just go for a forward siege workshop and start pushing this. It seems like Lix will be playing with double stable knights over here, getting bloodlines for himself. And the early knights will be pretty devastating, so this is why I think that Miguel will have to keep making his own knights, and he has to play with knight and crossbow. And probably forward siege workshop. Indeed, as Bielo is saying, if you place a siege workshop here, that actually is almost a forward siege workshop. It's so close to the opponent on this map. Anyways, Blacksmith is just coming in here for Lix. You see that, like, his eco took us that big impact that he's just getting the Blacksmiths out, and he should be having +1 defense or +1 attack by now. So, crossbows on the way, and you already have to evacuate one woodland. Once again, the amount of idle time for Lix is going to be much, much greater, and I think Miguel is doing the right thing. Crossbow Botkin and a couple of knights, and that's going to be pretty tough for Lix to stop, especially because Lix only has +1 defense on those knights. Crossbows now are in, and that's going to be a nice reroll over there from Lix for the time being, but once again, the idle time is pretty considerable. Another Voyager goes down, and these losses add up for Lix. 1 or 2 Voyagers going down here and there may not seem like it's much, but it actually adds up. Especially when you're up against a Civ like Franks that actually have a pretty decent eco by default. So, the production is more or less consistent for Miguel, even though, as I said, he kind of had some idle time on those tables. That's actually a nice pop from Lix, although he was waiting for the +2 defense to come in, and that actually may be a premature fight at the end of the day. He's waiting for +2. Once he has +2 defense, he's fine. And Miguel could also consider adding a couple of Spearmen, to be honest. Because even though Spearmen aren't going to be amazing, it's full cap from his opponent. And a couple of Spearmen here could actually help out very, very well at dealing with a couple of knights. Miguel has 2 knights only on the field. He's up against 4, but he also has a Spearman on the way. And he's got crossbows that can take down knights, even though the knights now have a +2, and I think now he realizes, okay, I'm going to lose this army, so I'm just going to dive in and pick off vultures, which is the right thing to do here. Like, whatever, I'm gonna lose this army, but if I can kill 3 more vultures with this, then that's absolutely jackpot, and that's exactly what he's doing, firing down hills, 1 more lady dies, and at the end of the day, Miguel has an 8 vultures lead in this one, and he's gonna keep adding crossbows. I think he kind of has to, because if he just goes for knights, the Chinese player will go for knight and camel. That being said, I feel like Miguel might be in the need of a pikeman transition at some point. He's playing on 3 TCs, which seems a little too greedy for the close proximity of this map. And as I said, the early knights will be pretty devastating against early crossbows. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And Lix actually goes for full aggro mode. Like, the thing is that this could still work out for Lix, because his army is currently better than Miguel's army. It's only 7 crossbows against 8 knights with +2 defense and bloodlines. And if you can actually start pushing up this one with knights and siege, Miguel could be in trouble. I think Miguel needs to just consistently add knights over here. If he just keeps adding knights and supports them with crossbows, he should have no trouble. However, he's not really making knights, and now goes for a monastery. Obviously, he's going to be able to outboom Lix here very, very easily. So it's 3 TCs boom. He's got Boso and Heavy Plow. So if Lix isn't actually starting to play aggressive here, then Miguel's just going to be able to have a crazy boom and finish off the game. Like, he already has a 16 Voyagers lead. It seemed like now Lix is bringing in the Siege Workshop. Lix also dropped the second TC over here. And, well, he has to divert all of his knights over here to clean up these 2 knights from Miguel. That's all the knights that Miguel has, though, and something that I really, really dislike here. As I said, I feel like this was a little too greedy from Miguel going for a 3 TC boom. Now that is a stone mine being added, which makes me believe that he's expecting the forward siege workshop and he wants a defensive castle. So the main problem that Miguel is indeed facing is that he doesn't have the food to sustain 3 TC's production and knights as well at the same time. That being said, he doesn't need to be very, very efficient with his knights. All he needs to do is just pick off siege weapons. That's basically the thing. If he picks up siege weapons, he's going to buy himself enough time to drop a defensive castle. If he gets a defensive castle on this hill, like deletes the mining camp and gets the defensive castle up there, he's gonna have no trouble holding off against the mangonel push. Monk also being mixed in here and actually gets a conversion. That was a nice one over there. Knights also looping around, trying to get potential siege picks, but the siege isn't in just yet. And second stable finally coming out now for Miguel. And as I said, this is cheap Frankish castle, so in the next 2 minutes or so, Miguel's gonna be able to drop a defensive castle. However, that 2 minutes is going to be a very, very long 2 minutes, to be honest. So that is going to be a lot of knights. Camos are mixed in as well. It's 11 crossbows against 6 knights versus 10 knights, mangonels, camos. But one thing that helps you here is that you actually have the crossbows that can fire over the walls, which helps immensely. And it looks like Miguel will bring back his knights to do some healing with them. And remember that Miguel, if he abandons that gold mine, that's the only gold mine that he has access to. So this is going to be a lot of idle time on Miguel, but 314 in terms of stone count, and he is almost there to drop a castle. If that castle goes up, I feel like Lix's chances will be going down to something like less than 5%. Sort of a scenario. 23 villagers lead for Miguel. The only way that Lix actually wins this one is if he's able to punish Miguel right now for playing very, very low army and very greedy eco. Now, Miguel is apparently not reacting to this one, and I'm not sure what happened here. But he could just add a house behind and save this. Holy smokes, he's opening this up. This may be intentional, but this is very dangerous. I have a feeling that this is intentional, because he could have revolted that, but he lost 2 more villagers. And yeah, indeed, Lix is not diving in. There is the castle. So maybe he indeed was trying to make sure that his opponent is attacking this angle, so he can get this castle up. As I said, he deleted the mining camp. And Lix, I think, has no idea about that castle going up. Indeed, that's the case. And by the time Lix is going to notice that, the castle goes up. So this actually made sense for Miguel. What he has to be careful about is that the knights could still run into his eco and completely destroy it. So I think Miguel wants another castle. 14 on stone makes me feel like there isn't going to be another castle somewhere around over here, and that would completely stall that push out. +1 defense just coming in right now for Miguel. As I said, what he needs to focus on is making sure the siege weapons die. That's the #1 scenario. Now Lix is getting close to diving in. There is free mangonels supporting. In this scenario, we are trying to convert the camels. So that's the thing for Miguel, because the camels will be extremely helpful dealing with the knights of the opponent, and he also gets 1 conversion. 26 villagers lead for Miguel. His eco isn't amazing, to be honest, because he's got an awful lot of villagers on stone. And he is getting close to losing a TC over here. But as I said, another castle will come in here, and that's going to potentially prevent anything from happening here. The monks are a little bit mispositioned for Lix, and so are the mangonels, I believe. Monks will be picked off by the crossbows. Miguel eats some big mangonel shots over there. That was a quite unfortunate fight, and the thing is that the narrow choke point is favoring Lix over here, and indeed that TC is going to melt. And that means that the gold mine for Miguel is going to be very, very exposed. Once again, technically he has a huge eco lead, but Lix's push is getting more and more dangerous, and from a point where it seemed like Miguel is dominating this game, we're getting close to saying that, hey, this game could start to be even if this push actually starts to happen. That's a very, very nice move from Miguel, though. Dives in on the mangonels, and as I said, the key is that he needs to snipe the siege weapons, brings in the monks to get a couple of conversions as well. The thing is that he lost a lot of knights, though, chasing down those mangonels. And yes, he killed the mangonels, but he's down to 7 knights, but the castle might actually go up in time. The problem is that these knights will actually cause a lot of idle time, so yeah, he sniped down the mangonels, but now he has 22 idols, and believe it or not, Lix actually has more eco working than him. And these are +2 knights, so it's not like you cannot just run past the castle and kill a couple of villagers with this. And look at the farming eco of Miguel. Overall, look at his eco. It's absolutely disastrous. And behind this one, we haven't talked about this, but Lix is slowly building up his own economy. It's 58, but now he's 3 TCs. Miguel will be playing on 3 TCs once again. But if Lix is not pushing Miguel's eco, Miguel is supposed to be able to outboom him pretty easily. In fact, Miguel, if he balances out his eco, he should be fine. He's getting ballistics, and he's still playing with crossbows, though, which is a little bit concerning for Miguel, though, because you don't really want to play crossbows in the long run with Franks against Chinese. Lix, indeed, also picking up 3 relics over here, and Lix is also going for TC #4, so the thing is that soon all the advantage that Miguel has had seems to be just gone. And he can't just go for knights because the camels will eat them, but if he just goes for crossbows, the crossbowmen will just be eaten by Chinese in the long run as well. It seems like Lix actually slows down his push for now, And we have a couple of camels converted over here, so Miguel has had some nice moments with his monks over there. But once again, the army numbers are absolutely even. However, the crossbows are just no-show, and they influence this game so little because there is just not a lot of them overall. Anyways, there is still 2 castles up to protect the base of Miguel, and he is still possessing pretty confident Voyager lead. And the thing is that eventually Lix is going to catch up in terms of economy, but now as I think Miguel's eco is going to start propelling him to a much better position in this game. So the army numbers are still rather close, but Lix still behind by 29 Voyagers, and that's a lot. However, if Miguel throws away this entire army over here, that would be an absolute disaster. That's an absolute disaster. He's losing his entire army over here, and if that's gone, it's not like he has this part of his base protected or so there is a lot of raiding potential over here for Lix. A defensive castle coming in here from Miguel, that's actually very useful. And he's also thinking about Imperial. I think that Miguel's superior eco, as Chivalry is coming in, is going to propel him to victory here because it's still almost insurmountable Voyager lead. However, you also have to consider that this is because Miguel had a huge eco lead. If he didn't have that big eco lead, this could have been a completely different game, because the thing is that he wasn't really making a lot of army and almost got punished for that. So, multiple stables coming in here, and now we're going to see a transition into heavy cavalry. Potentially halberdiers will be mixed in as well, because otherwise Lix could go for camels. And I think Lix is going to see the multiple stables being dropped, so he will probably know that his opponent is going into Imperial. Stables coming out as well for him, for camels, but the thing is that he's not even remotely close to Impic, to be honest. So, unless he does insane damage to Miguel, which seems unlikely with all these castles and theses protecting Miguel's eco, I just don't see this one happening for Lix. He is not far away from Imperial, but Heavy Camel is a technology that takes a lot of time to tech into. And I think by the time Lix would get to Heavy Camel, Miguel can start mixing in Halberdiers as well. And that's the thing, so Cavalier Halberdier here will just stomp everything. Plus, Miguel can start making traps immediately on free castles, so he can actually start melting buildings in 5 seconds. Lix will try counterattacking once again. He finds a nice spot over here, gets a couple of Voyager kills on the DC. But once again, this is just delaying the inevitable, because he's still behind by 20 Voyagers, clicked up to Imperial, but it's gonna be a 2.5 minutes deficit, and when you're this close to your opponent, you don't have 2.5 minutes to wait, to be honest. Like, these raids are really nice, but I think they are coming too late now. They're coming way too late, because Cavalier will be in for 1 minute, and in the meanwhile, Lix tried to drop a castle here. I think Lix was hoping that he's beating his opponent to Imperial and he can start trapping this down, but that didn't actually seem like it's going to be possible, and there is a hole on Lix's walls here, but instead Miguel will just dive in. I think that's another castle being dropped, probably some round over here indeed, and since there is a big opening on Lix's walls, the Cavalier will just flood in. Lix actually still attempts to do that castle, but once again, Cavalier is almost in, whereas Lix is still waiting for Imperial Age to come in. Now, that being said, if somehow this push stalls out from Miguel, then he could still be in trouble, because Heavy Camel will beat him. I would think that he's going to start transitioning, or at least adding Halberdier here as well. This is obviously not a great fight for Lix, so he's fighting against +4 defense Cavalier, especially Frankish Cavalier that even have extra HP. With Camels and Knights, he actually killed quite a lot. He actually killed quite a lot of them, so he's holding this one off for the time being. The problem is that he's just gonna get overrun by Chivalry Cavaliers. Like, those are extremely fast, and he's losing his gold mine. Once again, if he was at the same time to Imperial as Miguel, maybe I would have believed, but now it seems a little too late. The Camels will try to hold this one, and they're not actually that bad against Cavalier. But look at this, Lix is getting castle dropped once again. He needs Heavy Camel ASAP, but Heavy Camel takes 150 to finish, and Cavalier is something like 110. So this is what I said, that even if you reach Imperial at the same time, Heavy Camel takes a lot more time to research than Cavalier with Chivalry. and that's a problem that Lix is facing. He's just too late to Imperial now, and he's just going to get clapped over here in this fight. He will be able to pretty much take an even engagement over here, but the next wave of Cavalier will just finish him off, and by the time Heavy Camo kicks in, Lix is gonna have no army, and as I said, Miguel is just dropping castles everywhere. Lix's eco has completely collapsed. This is game over, and with that, Lix loses the first game over here. As I said, I feel like he felt a little rusty at the beginning of the game. Like, he lost something like 5-6 Voyages in Feudal, and that was basically the source of all the setback that he has suffered from. But after that, he almost punished Miguel for playing very, very greedily, so Miguel may have underinvested into military in early to mid Castle Age, because at the end of the day, this push almost finished off Miguel. He was lucky that he could get the castle up, especially this one. This was pretty close. This one was a nice castle from him, and I like the fact that he kind of baited Lix into pushing from this angle. However, this could have been a lot more disastrous scenario for Miguel. He took a very, very bad fight over there. Still, the massive eco lead propelled Miguel to a victory, and when I looked at this matchup, I originally thought that I favored Lix on land maps. You see in the second half of the game why I thought that, but here his deficit was just too much to overcome. So, surprisingly enough, the KD is actually pretty close in this game, 113 to 110. So, that was crazy. But overall, I think the main reason why Lix was in a very bad spot in this game is because his Feudal Age was pretty bad. So, a lot of Voyages were lost over there, something like 5-6, so he really got crippled by those scouts, and after that he was just unable to transition that easily to Castle Age, and that meant that he is losing this game over here, and we will go to one of Lix's home maps over here, which will be either Cross or Hideout. Let's go back to the lobby, and we can take a look at the Civilization draft. So Cross or Hideout, you lose Franks for Miguel and Chinese for Lix. As I said, I feel like if it's Cross, you don't have any traditional cross civs here for Lix, which are like Huns, Japanese, Lithuanians, whatsoever. So I would think it's either Malians or Celts here. Other civs wouldn't make that much of a sense. I think Celts depends on what Lix plans to do on islands, because it doesn't have a water civ, so island has to be a landing, especially considering that it's Lix. So it's either Celts or Incas for islands. And I think if it's Celts for islands, then we're going to see Malians on cross. If it is Incas on islands, then I can see Celts being used here for a man-at-arms opening with the fishing ships at the back. Other side, Lithuanians is probably the civ that we're going to see here for Miguel. He's got Khmer for Hideout, or potentially Cumans as well. Gold Rush is potentially Tatars, I would say, with all the hills. And that would make quite a lot of sense there. And islands will be Portuguese. So Cumans may go unpicked, or it could be your civ for Hideout. We'll see what the idea is. Whereas for Lix, as I said, Incas or Celts for islands. I think Mayans for Gold Rush. It could be Celts for Hideout as well, to be honest. Or it could be Incas for that map as well. That's something that we didn't talk about. In fact, I would think it's gonna be Malians on cross now, because Celts and Incas will probably be the civs for Hideout and Islands respectively, because it doesn't have a good long-term late-game civ on Hideout. Alright, so let's see if they are in the next game. Miguel takes game number 1. This is a best of 5. And what I don't know, but I will actually take a look at Liquipedia in a moment, if there is actual prize money for getting into the second round of Hidden Cup for qualifiers, but we'll only find that out later on. We have a Lithuanians versus Malians setup over here. I think both players went for the sort of straightforward pick. So we'll have Lix on the left side as Malians in red. Right side is going to be Miguel as Lithuanians in blue. So the thing is that Lithuanians allow you to drop a dock really fast over here because you start with a lot of extra wood or food. Because you start with a lot of extra food, you can go for wood as you see Miguel doing it. Normally, for any build order, you would send 6 on sheep, but with Lithuanians, you can just send these villagers onto the straggler trees, and you can go for that dock really early on. Sometimes you see lumber camps first. In fact, that's the traditional version of this one. So you send villagers out to get a wood going with a lumber camp and then drop the dock. This is a super early dock here from Miguel. And the reason why he is able to afford sending this villager out without loom or scout support is because Lix is very, very unlikely that he's going to be around here. Normally, I'm not a fan of sending out villagers without loom or scout support for fishing. However, I feel like in this case, because this is so early, this is completely something I can justify. And that extra shorefish over there is also going to help out really well. This is why Lithuania is one of the best civilizations for cross. Other side, for Lix, he's got Malians, which is a good civ overall for this map. In general, Malians is always a good choice on hybrid maps. You have cheaper buildings and it helps immensely when it comes to getting your dock down, getting your fishing ships in at the beginning. So Malians is a very good civ here. The problem is that up against Lithuanians, the Lithuanians are almost guaranteed to have the eco lead. As you see, there's already the first fishing ship out for Miguel. This is a very, very clean build order for Miguel here so far. And as I said, once you actually have enough wood to start making those fishing ships, you can actually start sending villagers to food here as well. This is a very clean build here for Miguel, who also seems like he's able to steal a piggy from Lix over here. Lix is playing the standard hybrid map build over here, so the next villager will probably go for this spawn. And in the meanwhile, Lix now finding the base of his opponent. Now, if he sees the villagers on stragglers and the no lumber camp situation, then he will probably know that his opponent already has a dock up, because, as I said, this is more of an unconventional build. So, if you see something like this, it is very likely that it's a fast dock play from the Lithuanians player. Anyways, because you have to make a lumber camp now, you will have to stop making fishing trips for some time, but as you see, Lix is just about to get his dock up, so basically, Miguel has quite a lot of equally, like 2 villagers for the entire duration of Dark Age is actually huge in terms of eco. Miguel is not noticing that, or is he? Final second move to repair that. That was a 1 HP pause side wall. And that villager had no loom, so this would have been a dead villager if Miguel doesn't react in time. This was enormous. So this could have been -1 wills for Miguel here. It was an insane final second reaction from our Brazilian. Anyways, Doc is just coming in here for Lix, and you see that Miguel is gonna have a consistent 3 villagers lead for the entire duration of Dark Age, and that is huge, and should allow him to go for a very, very good Castle Age timing, or Castle Age, Fuel Age timing over here. Probably 4 scouts and potentially skirmishers later on. He could also push in the deer for himself, by the way. Like, this deer is so close that you could really justify Miguel pushing in some deer over there. And oh, Lix! History repeats itself. First game he loses his scout to the TC, second game he loses that as well. And the reason why it hurts is because he knew exactly that his opponent was here. He has been scouting around the berries and the wood lines. He saw the straggler trees. If you see a straggler tree chopped down over here and you see the berries here, you know that the town center is over here. So he knew exactly that this town center is over here. Obviously, he was probably focusing on something else, but that doesn't actually change the fact that he just lost his scout once again. And that's actually extremely important on this map, because you have no idea what your opponent is up to here. If he's trying to sneak a villager to put a dock on your pond, there is the sneaky villager that will probably try to drop a dock here. Can something be done with the colors? Technically, yes, as we have a pause over here, one of the beauties of the live game. Unfortunately, I don't remember the hotkey to change colors, and yeah, so I also hate that they changed colors. Well, and also it would be a little bit confusing, I think, if we now change colors in the middle of the game, because as I said, it is like we have been here for 7 minutes with these colors, so it seems like it's a drop. It's a drop because it says game ended, and there's nothing that justifies game ending. It seems like Miguel has dropped from the game, so we'll have to do a save and restore in this one. Anyways, Fuel Age is on the way for Miguel, but we'll have to continue from this point. So Miguel had a drop over here. Once again, the drawbacks of live games, that we are also facing the technical difficulties. But apparently they already restored it, or at least I hope they did. So we'll be able to jump back in there. We are... Oh no. What? What? I think... Was it my game that dropped? Because the only spectatable lobby is still this game. So I really don't know if it's actually my game that dropped or it actually is Miguel dropping. We were at 7 minutes. So let's hope that that is not an issue. Live spectating isn't really great right now in Age of Empires 2. So let's see if it's actual drop or it's just my game dropping. It could be both. So we were at 7 minutes something. If it is Miguel dropping and this lobby is just kind of a leftover bugged lobby, then we'll be dropping at the same time. If not, then it was my game dropping. So let's see if this is actually a game drop overall. Yeah, at least it's 7 minutes, so it's not a lot. Okay, it's actually a drop from Miguel, as you see. We dropped at the exact same time. So it seems like they will actually restore. I just don't know why this lobby was still up then. Like, the only way this is still up is if one of the players was still in that. Like, that's the only way that it happens. And, like, okay, now there is another lobby. And now they restored. So now we're back in action. Or at least we hope so. This is definitely a restore. So back we are. Welcome back to Competitive Age of Empires. We only missed 3 seconds, so if you have noticed, 2:01 was the time where Miguel dropped, and 1:58 is where we came back in this one. So you missed 3 seconds of action over here. The restore was successful. But anyways, there's going to be a Brax from Lix and most likely stables from him. Or it could technically be archers as well, because he's not sneaking villagers, but he's sending villagers to gold. Or it could be men-at-arms as well from Lix. Let's see if it's actually men-at-arms. Mali and men-at-arms are not bad because they do have 1 extra pierce armor, so it's much harder to clean them up with archers. But it is worth noting that Miguel, thanks to the fact that he has had the stronger eco in Dark Age, he will have a 1-minute advantage into Feudal. And indeed, it's actually Mali and men-at-arms from Lix, whereas his opponent, Miguel, is going to be playing with Scouts and Fire Galleys. So 2 on gold, but he's sneaking a dock up on Lix. And one thing that Lix didn't do, and something that I really think is an overrated move, is taking one of your fishing ships and sending it to this pond. And the reason why you do that is because if your opponent is sneaking a dock up on you, you will be able to spot it, but your fishing ship is still working. And that's not something that Lix has done. And the thing is that Miguel is already up. Luckily for Lix, his opponent hasn't finished his dock in time. But there's already a Fire Galley coming out. You could even make a case for a Galley, because you beat your opponent into Feudal Age, and a Galley kills fishing ships much easier. If it was even a Feudal Ages, you would make a Fire Galley, because you want to fight against the opponent's Fire Galley. But here, you could really justify a simple Galley to just kill the fishing ships fast, and then there is nothing else worth fighting for. So that could have been something that Miguel considers. Anyways, men-at-arms are coming in here, and I don't see a second building from Miguel, which makes me wonder if this is actually an archer range, and indeed it is. I think he sees the men-at-arms, and there's going to be archers as well for Lix. Remember that Miguel still has a 1 villager lead thanks to the fact that his food eco is a little bit more developed in Feudal. And if you look at the resources that he has banged up, that's also looking much better. And he's able to start pushing the fishing ships immediately. By the time Lix reacts, he's going to lose at least 1 fishing ship, but potentially more. There is still no Fire Galley coming out here. Miguel's food eco is completely untouched, and these men-at-arms are accomplishing absolutely nothing right now for Lix. Still no Fire Galley coming from him. By the time he gets a Fire Galley out over here, it's going to be too late anyways. So he's going to lose this pond extremely easily, and he will now start pushing on land. The problem is that his eco is going to be much, much worse than his opponent's eco. So Miguel having the extra fishing ships over here will matter, and Miguel, with that house, he was able to spot that well. And the right way to do this now would be to make a galley if you're Miguel. So now Lix is trying to quick wall that Voyager in, but if Miguel makes a galley here and he is doing that, the Voyager will never get the dock up. That's the thing. So all you have to do is keep attacking those walls. Oh, it doesn't even matter for Lix. This is not gonna be... Even if he walls this Voyager in, the entire concept of this one for Miguel is just to make sure that that Voyager isn't able to build that dock before the galley arrives. If the galley arrives, this is impossible for Lix. So it actually makes a lot of sense for Miguel to try and attack these walls, because that forces Lix to repair. And the galley is almost out. I don't think that this dock is going up. It's still 60%, and once the galley arrives, this Voyager is dead. And even the walls are going down. Indeed, this dock is not going up. There is no way you force build that either. So, like, Lix is trying! He gets the dock up! This is extremely important. This is super important because this is a completely different scenario. If this dock was denied, it's a completely different game. Now is the archers coming in here from Miguel, trying to pick off the men-at-arms to prevent the archers from getting through the walls. But remember, Malian men-at-arms do have extra pierce armor, so especially without fletching that Miguel is just getting, it's extremely hard to kill those Malian men-at-arms. And also, it is worth noting that Lix is getting a dock up on the southern pond. Now Miguel will start fishing on Lix's pond, and Miguel can still make fire galleys over here, but he's not doing that. He's not doing that because he's busy fighting this army. Once again, I feel like Miguel has had an enormous lead, but suddenly something started going wrong, and he seems like he's losing all the advantage that he has had. He has a 5 Voyagers lead, but this very, very late fire galley over here will mean that his fishing ships could all die on this pond. That being said, he's still going to be able to go for some fishing on this pond over here, and he could also expand to this one, so it's not the end of the world, but it could be a much, much better situation for him than it is right now. So he would be losing 4 fishing ships here as easily as Lix lost his fishing here on the left. Miguel's going to lose his fishing here on the north as well. Now archers coming in to counterattack. Lix has some archers inside those ranges as well, so I think he's just waiting for the opportunity to pop them out. Both players have pretty much the same upgrades over here, but if Lix is not popping those archers, he might be losing a couple of Voyagers over here. And also, Miguel takes the hill. He could have actually took this fight, but it seems like he won't. He could also pick off the man-at-arms now. And that's a nice move from Miguel, turns back, uses the skirms to pick off the archers. Skirms go down, but this was still a good trade for Miguel, I would say. But he's going to lose his fishing eco over here on this pond, which means that he's going to be left with only the left-hand side pawn. And Lix is slowly getting his own fishing eco back, so still a 4 Voyagers lead for Miguel, but it is not as convincing as it used to be. In fact, he has given up on this pond very, very easily. It is, as I said, a completely different game now that Lix got that dock up. If that dock was denied, this would almost be game over, because Miguel would have an untouched fish boom here and an untouched fish boom here, and that would be enough to propel him to victory. A defensive tower coming in here from Lix to protect the gold mine makes some sense, as he's going to try walling off his base to prevent the archers from running inside. Miguel loses the northern pond. Lix now has 2 pawns under his control. Miguel only has 1, so Miguel only has this pawn. Lix is gonna have 2. Anyways, archers are coming in here, and just in time the tower comes in, and that is going to prevent the archers from pushing any deeper. And also it seems like Miguel hasn't found 2 of his piggies up until to this point. What? How is this possible? Miguel has scouted this. How is this possible, guys? In the meanwhile, Lix dives in with the archers, and just like in game number 1, Miguel had a huge lead, but there was 1 or 2 bad moves that kind of throws away that lead almost. And in the previous game, he had a big enough eco lead to compensate for those mistakes. Here he doesn't. Here he doesn't. The fact that he was late with the fire galley on his own pond is actually huge. And the thing is that Lix is sacrificing all his archers here, but does that matter when he's slaughtering the eco of his opponent? All the eco lead that Miguel has had is now gone. And this army here, in exchange, isn't able to do much. Army numbers are still pretty decent, I would say, for both sides. So it's not like Lix has lost his entire army, to be honest, but it is 11 to 6 indeed in terms of eco KD. And Miguel is trying to get the dock up over here. Dock is coming in once again from Lix, And technically Miguel could try denying this one once again, but small things like this are mattering a lot. Look at that. If Miguel actually was paying attention here, he could have maybe stopped this dock. This lady is just tearing down that guy building the dock up here, and that's a completely different scenario once again, because Lix now has 3 pawns that he's contesting. Miguel only has 2 pawns that he's on. And Lix is already getting fishing eco in. It's a 4 vultures lead now for Lix. What a turnaround this was. And Lix is also trying to claim his own pawn back, and if he just makes a demo and snipes a 3 fishing ships, that's gonna be even more brutal. So a demo snipe here could be completely something I can justify, and that's the only reliable food income that Miguel has, to be honest. Like, he's got 1 farm, a couple of villagers on berries, and the fishing ships on the left. If he loses the fishing ships, he's gonna have no reliable food income. In fact, he already has to idle them to try and hide them from Lix. Meanwhile, Lix has fishing ships on this pond, fishing ships on this pond, and I think he's going to attempt getting some fishing ships over here as well, and that superior food eco will probably mean that he's gonna have an advantage going into Castle Age here as well. So, with that, we are gonna have skirms picking off the archers here from Lix. That's a nice comeback for Miguel. Remember, he's got Lithuanian skirm, so he's actually able to chase down the archers. Lix actually tried to detach 1 archer to draw away the skirms, but that didn't actually work out, as both players are doing some heavy market plays, and it seems like Lix is gonna have a slightly better Castle Age over here. You also have to keep in mind that the Malian Camo Knight is something I like a little bit more than just the simple Knight play of the Lithuanians, although we will see if the Lithuanian player will actually play knights or crossbows. It could be very possible we're seeing crossbows over here. It looks like Lix pops out the ships over here, and he will just barely lose this engagement, but the next fire galley should be able to clean this one up, because there is no more coming from Miguel. And Lix just waiting for the opportunity over here. He will soon have to unpop those fire galleys, although he has a repair vulture, and this is huge. He's able to keep this dock alive until the demo comes in. And Castle Age, he's also gonna have 140 advantage, untouched fish boom on the south. There is a pretty decent army of archers pushing him, and Lix, as expected, he will transition to double stable knights, which I like in this position, to be honest, because, as I said, early knights will be able to stomp, especially feudal age archers, but even early crossbows. So until you don't have good numbers of crossbows, as that's a nice move from Miguel, sends in a couple of skirmishers to deny that vulture from repairing. Nice split over there as well from the Brazilian, saving that fire galley. Well, he didn't save the fire galley, but the idea was that that blast from the demo ship isn't actually killing multiple ships. That being said, this is going to be a win here for Miguel on the right side, or at least so it seems. But in the meanwhile, as I said, Miguel's only reliable food income is these fishing ships, and he's going to lose 6 out of the 17 eco units that he has on food, and that's brutal. That's absolutely brutal. So Miguel's food eco is going to be awful. In fact, look at this. Look at how Miguel's food eco is going to look like after those fishing ships go down. There will be basically none. And without food eco, you're gonna struggle getting your upgrades in. Both players went for a defensive tower, so this is going to be a 1 TC play for a long time. As I'm saying that, it seems like Miguel Lix just bought a bunch of gold to get some TCs up. And indeed, that's actually something that's worth pointing out as well. 1 hour idle time for Miguel compared to 24 minutes. And look at this. Miguel's food eco looks like this. 3 villagers on food, and you will soon make that 1. And he's gonna get crossbow and bloodlines for himself. However, Lix's food eco is a lot more developed. He's gonna have an untouched fishing eco here on the south, untouched fishing eco on the north. He's gonna have gale nets. And he will potentially also attempt to reclaim this spawn on the right side. He could just pop out that fire galley and destroy that ship. Miguel's having another fire galley coming in here. And War Galley upgrade could be in for either player. I don't see that coming in, but look at this. Knights are now on the way. Miguel is pretty much cornered within his own base. He can actually defend his base nicely with crossbows. Like, he's got an army for that, but don't be surprised to see a forward siege workshop here from Lix. That's actually a pretty bad situation for Lix. Loses the majority of the HP on this knight, but the knight is still alive, so if he has a monk, at some point he might be able to heal that. Anyways, it is still worth noting that it's 17 villagers on food compared to 3 on food, and 3 on food will mean that you will struggle actually making villagers, and that's going to start showing when it comes to economy. Lix has an 11 villagers lead, And the funny thing is that I would have said that I prefer Lix over Miguel on land maps and Miguel over Lix on hybrid maps. And so far on the land map, Miguel was the one winning, and Lix is the one that is having a much better time over here on this hybrid map. A third TC is coming in here for Lix, and he's able to sustain villager production, whereas, as I said, Miguel's gonna struggle big time just dropping farms, but he's got no horse and you see the TC idle time rising crazily like Miguel, because he's unable to afford making villagers. Also, he is making cav archers now, which could be a unit that is interesting in this situation. Lithuanian cav archers are very underrated. They're actually a very good unit. They don't have any amazing bonuses, but I think they are having almost all upgrades. They might be missing party and tactics. Anyways, as currently it seems like we will have 3 pawns for Lix over here and only 1 for Miguel, and Miguel has no fishing on that pawn right now. And it is 59 eco compared to 48. And Miguel's TC idle time is also rising like crazy because right now his food eco is far from being able to sustain a 2 TC villager production. He's behind by 12 villagers. If you take a look at Lix's eco, he's got a very consistent food income. He also has horse color and bow, whereas his opponent only has double bidax and no horse color. So much better eco upgrades as well for Lix. And that army may be a little too much to handle for those knights, but they will find a villager over here. So that's another added benefit. And it is extremely hard for Miguel to raid the base of his opponent because those TCs are so well placed. Like this TC on the wood line and overall positioned over here, and this TC, the starting one, basically prevent the crossbows from breaking into the base over here very easily. Nice reaction from Lix, jumping away from the arrow fire. That could be a nice one though from Miguel if he finds this wood line with the cav archers and the knight. That could be huge. The problem that he's going to be facing is that he's losing 2 monks and he will be losing a lot of villagers back at home. If that wood line is hit by the knights, that's gonna be a disaster. Lix, however, also losing a lot of vills himself. So both players will start dropping in villager count really fast, because by the time Lix is noticing this, he's gonna be losing a lot of vills. Same thing for Miguel, but Miguel at least reacts to it and runs back to the TC. Lix absolutely not reacting. He's losing all his vills here. Both players are losing huge villager numbers right now, so at the end of the day, this is still going to be a lead for Lix, but imagine if he actually just sent these villagers back to the TC. He's completely ignoring all his villagers getting slaughtered, and even though he is killing a lot as well from his opponent, he could kill even more if he wanted to, like send these knights over here to kill these stone miners. At the end of the day, he is only having a 6 villagers lead now, so at the end of the day, I feel like this is actually better for Miguel. He lost a lot of villagers back at home, but Lix lost way more than he did. And maybe Miguel is coming back into this one, because now Miguel is getting his food eco up, and the cav archer's mobility will be something to consider in the long run. So once you have the cav archer mobility, you can actually start raiding. And in the meanwhile, crossbows will be counterattacking. What am I talking about? These crossbows are the Miguel's crossbows. They were just going back home. So Miguel getting his food eco on the right side. Still 3 pawns for Lix, but those pawns are slowly running out of food, and that's something that is worth considering. And Lix now has 1 hour of villager idle time as well himself. Miguel has a lot more still. But the fact that Miguel actually is now just 5 villagers behind is actually something that's very promising for him. He was in a much worse spot. Like, the thing is that he's still behind, but not that much behind. In fact, if you take a look at the scores, they're slowly evening out. And don't forget, there's a lot of relics on this map, so Lithuanian player can start picking up relics and getting the attack buff for the knights. The thing, however, is that because there is 3 pawns in the hands of Lix, these 3 relics are definitely going to be inaccessible for Miguel, so is this one. And it looks like we had villager scuffle over here, as Miguel is going for relics. It seems like now the game has settled in to be really peaceful, as Lix is trying to play with knights, but that I think is a bad decision here. You're trying to play knights against one of the best knights in the game. Obviously, right now Miguel is making cav archers, and that helps a little bit. However, Miguel could still make his own knights, and that's something that Lix doesn't know if that's going to happen or not. Now, that being said, there is 15 knights against 13 crossbows and 10 cav archers, and that's the situation where the knights could just overrun the cav archers. Although, that's a nice fight over there. Monk is also in there, and he's gonna get conversion on one of those knights. This is actually an okay-ish fight for Miguel here. He could try running for this hill, because he wants to fire down hills on those knights over there. And in the meanwhile, his cav archers are moving into Lix's base, missing ballistics and thumbring still. So this is dangerous for Miguel because he sent all his cav archers to counterattack, but he just lost this fight so badly. There is going to be a couple more knights running into Miguel's base now, and I think that these cav archers are actually doing way less than what they're supposed to. They could just come back home and help defend, and now, oh boy, Lix is going to kill a couple more villagers over here if Miguel unpops those villas into the knights like that. Eco KD is absolutely even now, and if you take a look at the villager count, it's dead even. However, Miguel has an awful lot of idle time on him. It is 230 versus 110. That is absolutely crazy. This TC might actually go denied by the cav archers though. Still, it is only 14 cav archers, and as I said, if you don't have good cav archer numbers, they will just be overrun by knights. You also have very low eco upgrades for Miguel, so no wheelbarrow, no boso. In the meanwhile, it seems like Lix actually mismicroed his scorpions because two of them actually went down to what I assume was the town center fire. Cav archers missing Lix's villagers and then turning back. That could be a TC denied. It seems like the knights inside have been cleaned up, but now there is siege push coming in here from Lix, who's assembling another horde of knights, and that is a TC that actually is gonna go up because the cav archers, or oh, that's 97%. Eventually, that's gonna go up. But that's once again a couple of villagers killed from Lix, and now it's an absolutely even villager count between the two players. And remember that eventually you could get some very strong Lithuanian knights on the field. So from a situation where Miguel was definitely behind, now he's in a very good spot compared to that. He is still at best even compared to Lix, but I feel like compared to the situation that he was in, losing basically all his spawns to Lix, now it is an even scenario. I think that's something that Miguel is very happy with right now. And once he's able to get to good cav archer numbers, Malians will somewhat struggle against that, although that's a debatable fight as well. The thing is that Malian heavy cavalry might still overrun cav archers in Imperial. Malian skirms aren't great, so what you will probably have to play with is champions with the extra pierce armor. However, champions are very slow. So the mobility of the cav archers could actually show, and I really like how Miguel is using his knights, sniping down the siege weapons. The extra attack coming from the relics actually helps quite a lot, because otherwise those knights would only have the bloodlines upgrade. And a lot of those expensive siege weapons going down for Lix, whereas Miguel is doing a relatively decent job preserving his army numbers, even though many cav archers go down to somewhat sloppy micro over here. So it's only 9 cav archers still, and knights arrive. The thing is that if you play cav archers, you need to preserve your numbers, and you need good numbers of them, like something like 10, 20 at least, in one group. Otherwise, you will just get overrun. Lix skyrocketing in villager count. Look at this. What happened here in the last 1 minute? I was just praising Miguel for having so good defense, but it seems like he lost way too many cav archers to these, not necessarily mis-microed, but under-microed fights, I would say. And suddenly, Lix has pulled ahead by 20 villagers. It seems like Lix just started massing villagers on all of his TCs. And there's a castle drop from Lix. Holy smokes, the aggression. He really wants this game for himself. And for a moment, it seemed like the victory is slipping out of the hands of Lix over here. Now, it is much more convincing for him. And remember that Miguel is still on 6 food eco. All of this is basically on this spawn. Miguel's entire food eco is idle right now, and that's something that's always worth keeping in mind, whereas Lix is still untouched on free pawns, and that is enormous. Knights with +1, +2, they're able to just chase down these cav archers over here if they are not microed, and Miguel is down to 1 cav archer, taps out of the game. Holy smokes. I'm not going to say it's a throw from Miguel, because Lix played this one really well. However, the thing is that Miguel has had a consistent 4 villagers lead throughout the first 10-12 minutes of the game, and he was able to destroy Lix's fishing eco over here. So at some point it seemed like Miguel is going to dominate this game, but then things started going wrong, like the dog going up here for Lix, then Miguel losing his fishing eco over here, losing a lot of villagers to the archer counterattack. And at the end of the day, Lix ends up with 62 villagers killed and 29 lost only. That is crazy KD on the eco. I think that actually tells you the story of why this game was won by relics over here. Yes, there is indeed 8 relics on this map. The reason why there is 8 relics on the map is because on the Hidden Cup free version of this map, there was only relics in the corners, but no one actually bothered picking them up, as you see, for example, in this game as well. So they decided to add it on the land as well. But yeah, I also think that Lithuanians, for them, that could be brutal. So if they control 2 pawns, they're able to pick up 2 relics on land and then just take those on 2 pawns. That could be crazy. So I feel like, yeah, indeed, it's a little too much. I would be fine if there was like 2 relics on the land and then 4 in the corners. That's something that I'm completely fine with, because that would mean that a Lithuanian player, if he controls 2 pawns, he's able to pick up 2 relics from the pawns and 2 at maximum from the middle. So if everything goes perfectly for the Lithuanian player, he's able to get a maximum of 4 relics. Here, it's relatively, well, I'm not going to say relatively easy, but it is definitely doable to pick up 4 relics if you combine how many relics you have on land and water. Anyways, that was game number 2 over here. An even scoreline now in between the 2 players. Lix's aggression is paying off over here. How about Aztec Monk Rush? The problem is that this map is very, very open and Monk Rush is slow. And also you have to consider that your opponent is going to be playing, you can just react to that with Light Cav. It's not impossible, but the relics are also very, very spread out, so it's not like you're going to get a massive boost from Aztecs. So it's not like you're just picking up the relics. In comparison to a map like, for example, Kawasan, where you have all the relics in the middle, there a Monk Rush is absolutely viable, because you can pick up the relics easily. The thing is that you don't really get a lot of benefit from Aztecs here, because the relics are so spread out that by the time you collect them, you will just get overrun by scouts, knights, whatever. Anyways, Lithuanians are gone for Miguel, and Malians are gone for Lix. We have an even series right now, and that means that we will have Islands or Gold Rush. If you are Miguel right now, you probably pick Islands. And funnily enough, I think that if it's Islands, Lix is going to be pretty dangerous on that, because we know what's coming. The thing is that Lix has no water save right now. So if it's Islands, I think it's going to be Incas. Because now that Malians are gone, I think that you are keeping Mayans for Gold Rush. You use Celts on Hideout and use Incas for Islands. So that's probably the concept. Other side, Khmer will probably be the Civ for Hideout, Tatars for Gold Rush, and Portuguese for Islands. So if my predictions are correct, we should see a Portuguese versus Incas matchup over here. Almost historical, but not completely. Civilization matchup over here. Celts could also be possible for Islands, and then Incas for Hideout is also completely possible. It's going to be Islands, so that we know. So yeah, indeed, that's something I was talking about, Bloodless, that I think that Lix has no amazing civs for Hideout or Islands. In fact, it is possible that we're seeing Incas on Hideout and then Celts landing here for Lix on Islands. Alternative is an Inca landing here and the Celts play on a Hideout. But I think that Islands and Hideout will be these 2 civs, and then Gold Rush will be Mayans, and Indians will be left out of the party. I think Cumans will be left out for Miguel, even though it is technically possible that we're going to see Cumans on Hideout. But we'll see what happens with that. I think Cumans could be a possibility on Hideout for the sake of going for a fast castle Kipchak play. Because if you assume that your opponent is going to play Celts over there, then you could actually play fast castle Kipchaks. The thing is that depending on what Lix selects here, if Lix goes for Incas here, Miguel will know that Hideout will be Celts from Lix. Kuman Boom is strong for Hideout, but Kuman Boom is going to delay your Castle Age and you will get punished really hard by Celtic Mangonels. Like, the way that you fight a Kuman Boom is just by going fast castle and like a Pike and Siege or so push. So it is strong, but it could be punished very easily by especially a Celtic Mangonel push. And I would think that that's by default the plan for Lix, even if he isn't up against Kumans. So this is why I'm saying that if you pick Kumans there, I feel like you FC into Kipchak. because the defensive castle is going to protect you from the mangonel aggression, and then the keep check will give you mobility to just counterattack the opponent's base. That could be something. Although with Khmer available, I think that it is also possible that we're just going to see Khmer over there. But yeah, he has multiple good sieves for hideout. I honestly like the sieve draft of Miguel a lot more. And a bit of a surprise over here, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody said it's gonna be Incas, it's gonna be Celts for Licks. We're going to islands with an unconventional civ selection over here. And that is, Miguel will be playing Portuguese, that's no surprise, obviously in red. Licks will be playing Indians. Indians is a water civ. Now, Italians were banned by Licks on this map. Portuguese were picked by his opponent, but there was no Saracen pick, there was no Viking. Actually, there was a Viking pick, I believe, from Miguel that was sniped. I will have to check. Yeah, indeed, Miguel picked Vikings, but that was sniped, and he had Portuguese available. So, what that means is that we'll have Indians. Now, how does even the water tech tree look like for Indians? Because I have no idea. Let's take a look, because it's only Dark Age. So, Indians... not amazing. Not amazing. I'm just going to quickly show this off. So, this is how the Indian tech tree looks like. They have War Galley, Galleon, they have full upgrades for their Galleon, but they do not have Shipwright, they do not have Fast Fires. So, it's actually an okay civilization for water, especially if you don't go into a post-Imperial scenario. Obviously not ideal, but technically, if Lix wants to play just pure water fights, Indians is actually a somewhat viable civ for that. The other thing that you're getting with that is that you have cheaper Voyagers, so you are going to be able to go up the field a little faster, even though I believe that it is indeed very likely that we're just going to see a landing of some sort from Lix. Maybe he thinks that an Inca or Celtic pick here would be too predictable for landing, and he just wants to be a little more unpredictable. So the thing is that if Lix is landing, the bigger question is what kind of landing are we gonna have? Are we gonna have like a feudal age scouts or men-at-arms towers type for landing? Or are we gonna have more like a fast castle landing? Because if you remember 2v2 World Cup, Lix and Yo played one of the strategies where Lix was Teutons on Team Islands. And what he did was go for a fast castle landing, and his opponents were just unable to convert his knights because they had the conversion resistance, and he went for a knight and siege push. So I feel like there is a legitimate chance Lix wants to fast castle this one. This is a side dock. Actually, no, this is a back dock, which means that it is going to be a landing from Lix. If you place a back dock like this has to be a landing from Lix. Indeed, in terms of islands, the two players have somewhat similar islands, although I like Miguel's island a lot more because it's like bulkier and it's much wider overall. So the wood lines and the gourds are a little more safe, whereas Lix has this little useless land patch over here. These wood lines and this stone is actually pretty bad for him. Even this gold mine is pretty bad. So back dock for Lix, and it's actually very funny that about a year ago, when I was like talking to players like Dogao or Nikov or so, it wasn't a year ago, but a little less than that. So many pros have said that landing is gonna be forward dock, but the thing is that more and more we are seeing players going for back docks with the landing, and that is basically because you want to make sure that your fishing eco is surviving as long as possible. So I also like the back dock landing a little bit more over here. Indeed, as you have been pointing out, both of these gold mines are really exposed to potential war aggression. This might be okay in feudal, but in a castle and definitely in imperial, it is going to be relatively easy for Miguel to deny that. Same for this one. For now, he's going to be able to access it from this side, and Miguel shouldn't be able to deny that in feudal, at least. So all the fish... What? Why did I say all the fish? No, all the deer has been pushed in by Lix over here, and he's on the way to feudal age. Both players go for loom, so I think for Lix that means that he wants to land. For Miguel, that means that he knows that he's getting landed. Because Lix makes loom, like, you make Loom either to defend against the landing or to do a landing yourself. And I can tell you that Lix is not preparing to defend against the landing. Lix is preparing to attack with a landing. So the key thing I think for Miguel is making sure that he's able to keep his fishing eco alive. Because if he's able to keep his fishing eco alive, he's going to have a very, very consistent eco benefit. He will actually send 4 Voyagers to gold, I assume, and these will all go on wood. So it will probably be a couple of fire galleys from him at minimum. Indeed, this is going to be basically a standard galley rush build order from him. But he should be expecting a landing. Alright. So, with that, we are gonna have Field Age coming in here right at the same moment, basically, for both players, but you already have the landing here from Lix on this land patch, and Miguel, I think, is looking for landing on the other side, so this is actually a sneaky, sneaky landing from Lix, because this is the narrow part. Like, if you actually take a look at the island shapes, if Miguel is expecting a landing, he would expect it over here, but it seems like he is going to be completely unaware of this landing, and it's going to be a scout's landing, indeed. And now a Voyager will come in here to get that outpost up. So it will be revealed, or at least it will soon be revealed. The question is what Miguel is going to be able to react with. Lix is going to be able to pick off one Voyager over here. That's actually pretty important. I think the reason why denying this outpost is important is because this way Miguel doesn't know if it's scouts or if it's archers. That's the thing. There's a spearman coming out here as well, which means that Miguel's scout is going to be in trouble. And Miguel's making the brags just now, making defensive tower. So I think, as weird as it sounds like, he may have gotten caught off guard over here with this one. Spearman pokes down Miguel's scout over here. Oh, disaster for the people's champion here. Eventually the scout dies. But you already forced the defensive tower, and you've already caused a lot of chaos over here. Scout is going to try and come in, and potentially pick off another Voyager over there, as the Voyagers will just run past. Indeed, Lix sees this, and he's going to place an archer range right over there. Look at that archer range placement from Lix. And by the time Miguel's galleys arrive, in fact, Miguel is making galleys because he knows that he needs to kill fishing eco. He knows that there is going to be no navy. This is why he's making galleys over here. And he's probably gonna try to get a couple more fishing ships up for himself, but that's a beautiful tower from Lix. And if I would have to select one player that is the best at landings in island games, it's Lix. The thing is that this guy is crazy when it comes to landings, and many players I have seen trying to land when it comes to islands games, but very few of them are actually efficient at that and able to pull off a win from them. Lix is one of those. And Miguel, by the way, I think he doesn't know that there is a tower coming up in his face. He does. So he will try to counter tower that at some point. But that's not really going to happen for now. He's going to be off from that gold mine. The other gold mine is somewhat inaccessible. Fishing ships are actually still alive for Lix. And do you know what Lix is going to do? Lix will make a dock here. I know Lix. He will actually try to hide those fishing ships from the opponent's eyes and make a dock here. And fish in this corner. It's amazing that Lix was able to preserve all his fishing ships without losing a single bit of an HP on them. Now, he might actually just run into a galley here. He wants to sneak a dock over here, but that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. I think it's actually better for him that it doesn't happen, because it's better for him to just sneak the fish over here. That would be the safest spot for him to fish at. But really, preserving those fishing ships actually matters a lot, especially with things like this happening for Miguel, losing a voyage. And this is Miguel's home map. Miguel has won Arabia, very convincingly, in fact. And as I said, Lix was playing kind of sloppy in that game. Now this is a much cleaner build from Lix, and indeed, here comes the dock. I would have preferred it over here, but this is also a fine dock. And look at this, the woes aren't going up. What is happening to Miguel? He's sending the weak Voyager back. That was so sloppy, that should never happen. And it's Kerms and Scouts coming in here, a little sloppy as well here from Lix. Taking this one down, he's still allowing Miguel to have free fishing ships, but Miguel is not really able to capitalize more on the water. That's the thing. So Miguel has free fishing ships, but that's actually just free fishing ships, and it doesn't compensate for the fact that there have been a couple of Voyagers killed here on land. So with that, What do we have here? We have another dock here from Lick. So he tries to push the water. I think he knows exactly that his opponent could be having a pretty big fish boom. He doesn't know exactly how big it is. And honestly, if he knew it was only 3 fishing chips, he probably wouldn't bother with this. But he's going to try getting the fishing chips killed over here. You could make a case for a galley and just trying to snipe those as fast as possible. Archers will now be counterattacking as this tower is up for Miguel. But you know what Lix could do? Drop a tower here. If a tower gets positioned over here, that denies the wood mine and it denies the most of the gold mine. So now if you're Lix, you are probably gonna think about that. At the end of the day, Lix had a 5 villagers lead over here in this one. Neither player having wheelbarrow, and Lix also has horse color for his farms. And look at Lix's resources. Lix never lost his fishing eco. Now it looks like Miguel will find it, so he might actually lose all of it. But Lix is on the way to Castle Age in a moment. And if he gets to Castle Age, it's going to turn into a siege fight. And the only reason why I don't understand Indians here is because if this was anything other than Indians, you would just make knights. And knights in siege would absolutely be able to destroy everything over here. Lix is dragging away that galley with 1 fishing ship, so it's not actually hitting the rest of the fishing ships. Just delaying this one as much as possible. Indeed, here comes Castle Age for Lix. He might just have these skirms sort of camp the bottom of these docks so that they can actually start killing the fishing ships, or loop around and hit the only wood line that Miguel has access to. I like the fact that Lix is also walling in his towers over here. Extremely underrated move, I would say. And eventually he's going to lose his fishing eco, but look at the Castle Age differences. That's absolutely sick. And honestly, if he beats his opponent to Castle Age here, especially with so much pressure on these wood lines and idle time for Miguel, you could make a case for a War Galley upgrade for Lix. And if you make War Galley upgrade and go for fire ships, suddenly you can potentially take control over water, and that is once again a possibility. We'll have Bloodlines, so it is likely we're going to see a couple of camels added here. And remember that camels for Indians also deal more damage to buildings, which means that it's actually pretty hard to get rid of them, and they can really punish you overall. So, for now, the archer gets picked off here, which means that these skirms won't really be able to do much. But look at the Castle Age differences. Look at that Castle Age difference. 28 seconds compared to 220 missing. And it's going to be triple stable even from Lix over here. And he's now getting a blacksmith up. And the blacksmith is a prerequisite building for a siege workshop. So you kind of have to get that up. That's a little late from Lix. But still, siege workshop is going to come in. And as I said, War Galley upgrade could be something that he considers. Indeed, he's now going to try and counterattack on the water. Because the thing is that you don't necessarily have to finish off Miguel here. What you want is kill his fish and potentially take control over the water. And this power spike here for Lix, getting War Galley in here, will mean that he will be able to potentially clean up these ships and start adding his own fishing eco. Now Miguel has a 2 villagers lead, but he's not up to Castle Age. And here come the camels. And as I said, those camels could just dive beneath that tower and start melting it. They actually do a lot of damage to towers over here. And there's the monastery. And indeed, Miguel is going to have to kind of drop a castle. But where is he going to drop that castle? I think if he drops a castle here, he might still be safe. This is the thing. However, I don't think that he no longer has access to that gold mine. That's the problem that he's facing. Normally, a castle here would be great because it protects the wood and protects the gold. However, there is no more gold mine or no more security over here for Miguel. And this gold mine is also gone. Other option would be to drop a castle somewhere around over here and protect this woodland and gold. Lix has fire ships now, so he's going to start pushing out here, going for the fishing eco of his opponent. Miguel, indeed, is going to drop a castle here, I think. The problem is that he's still going to be losing half of his eco here. So, yeah, the castle is going to be up. But the thing is that he's still going to lose one of the gold mines, which already is an advantage, I think, for Lix. No War Galley upgrade coming in here for Miguel. Miguel has 2 Voyagers on food. I would like to add that as well. So the TC idle time is going to be pretty big as well. He's going to struggle bringing in upgrades. Whereas, even though Lix has lost his fishing eco, Lix has a pretty consistent food income from the farming that he's having. So that's something that is also worth adding. Scorpions against the pikemen. And Miguel is also losing a lot of villagers here. So he's losing way more than what he actually needs to. And now it's Organ Guns time, but Miguel is down to 38 villagers against 45. He has to use the market like crazy. And look at this, he's forced to buy food because he has no food income, absolutely no food income. And slowly the towers are going down, which would, like, for now this wood line is alright. But what happens if this wood line runs out? Miguel's gonna have no reliable wood line, to be honest. And now an Organ Gun comes in here as Scorpions are popping out as well. So many villagers could die so easily here for Miguel, that's the other thing. So look at this, another villager goes down, another couple of villagers, and imagine if these were actually knights and not camels, this would be even more devastating. So, honestly, this could be even worse for Miguel. He's in a tough spot now. He's in a very, very rough spot, to be honest, because look at this, all this carnage on his island, and Lix is making a monk to pick up the relic of his opponent over here, +1 attack on the way. And the difference between the two players is that Lix's eco here back at home is untouched, whereas his opponent is kind of struggling to survive, so to say. And indeed, Miguel can't even get the War Guide upgrade, that's right. His eco is so bad right now, because of all the pressure in his face, that he can't get the War Guide upgrade, which means that his opponent is gonna have a superior navy on water. Fire ship pops out. If this was a demo, it would have sunk all of those ships, I believe. Just look at all the blue on the island of Miguel. And he probably suspected that this is coming, but he still wasn't prepared for all this aggression. And that's what separates Lix from other players. Many players have landings attempted on islands, but usually those pushes stall out, and the defending player is able to just outboom them on water and eventually win the game. But what makes Lix special is that he's just able to use these landings extremely efficiently. Miguel coming in here with a transport himself, sending 5 Organ Guns to the eco of Lix though, and that could be really devastating. I think Lix has spotted this because he's rushing up a monastery immediately, but he doesn't have any buildings back at home, and that could be very devastating. Luckily for him, he's got town centers over here that can protect his villagers a little longer, but that could be a lot of villagers killed, and that could be a life-saving thing for Miguel now. Because he has been losing villagers all over the time, but if these Organ Guns just absolutely shatter the opponent's eco, this might be the way to come back for Miguel. Because Lix is gonna have a hard time defending against this one, and Miguel is sort of surviving right now. He's not having a great position, in fact he's in an awful position. But in the meanwhile, Lix is gonna have a lot of idle time on him, so soon this idle time is going to exceed what Miguel has had on him. Lix is trying to get some monks out, now gets a couple of camels. Still, I believe that unless this does a lot more damage, Lix should have the massive lead. It's still 12 villagers lead. If you look at the water, now Lix is taking over on the water as well. So, yeah, sure, this is nice for Miguel. But if this actually gets cleaned up, and it's not actually killing something right now, then eventually you will still see Miguel losing water. Miguel is slowly running out of wood here as well, and that's something that's worth considering as well, and there is still a 12 villagers lead in the favor of Lix. Lix is losing a couple of villagers over here, and he's going for Redemption Monks. Also gets a couple of camels out, another monastery for Redemption Monks here. So yeah, this definitely delays Lix's push here, and I think Miguel wants to transport another blob of Organ Guns through. Holy smokes, that's a lot of Organ Guns, and maybe Miguel is coming back into this one. He doesn't have careening on those transports, so this is gonna be 2 turns for him to get those guys through. But yeah, these Organ Guns aren't really doing much right now. That's the problem that Miguel is having. Whereas Lix's landing did a lot more, and now it's another wave. The camels could catch those couple of Organ Guns off guard, especially with Mangonel support. The Mangonel will be focused down, I believe, here by Miguel. Mangonel gets a good hit on. And now, once again, Miguel's woodline could be exposed. The next transport is coming in. A nice move from him to sink that lonely fire ship that was preventing that. There is multiple monks coming in here, though, from Lix. And that may be enough to hold against this one. I feel like the problem that Lix is gonna be, or Miguel is gonna be facing, is that he doesn't have siege to back up his push with. And it's still 15 villagers lead in the favor of Lix, even though the idle times are not getting closer. Monks popping out at the wrong time or position, no sanctity on them either. So this was a little bit questionable for Lix. trying to save his eco over here. This is still tricky because now those Organgas are starting to do a lot of damage, denying resources, and especially the wood income is getting very, very wacky for Lix. He's getting ready to drop a castle though. If he's able to get a castle somewhere around over here, or maybe even delete that lumber camp and drop that castle over there, he's gonna be fine though. Just as much as Lix is unable to push because of this castle, Miguel is unable to push because of a defensive castle could be coming in here from Lix pretty soon. And instead Lix decides to colonize the island of his opponent here. He says, okay, whatever. If I can't have wood on my own island, I'm just gonna take it from yours. And remember that now Miguel is mismicroing those Organgas a little bit over here, running into the TC fire. And even though he killed a lot of villagers, we also have to add that he has a lot of TC idle time. And he has also been losing villagers. So at the end of the day, villager KD is still similar. This push has been cleaned up. And oh, Miguel wants a castle drop on the opponent's island. Miguel wants a castle drop, but I think Lix knows exactly what's going on. Lix knows exactly that this is going to be a castle drop over there. And Lix has the stone for his own castle, so what he needs to do is just wait for the opportunity. And also, I assume that it's wanting to be a castle drop because there were way too many villagers just to make a lumber camp here. So Lix getting that TC up over there, and he's getting mangonels out too on that island. He seems like he's going to be able to clean up these Organgas now though. Tries to get a couple of conversions, but that's not going to happen either. And eventually, the camels will take down the ships here as well. Now, do camels actually have a bonus against ships? I always forget. It's because it's an inconsistent rule. Pikemen do have a bonus against ships, but I'm not sure about camels. Camels have it as well. Yeah, it seemed like it because the camels destroyed those fire ships very fast. So, yeah, it kind of seemed like camels also have an attack bonus. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right what you're saying on the chat. Camels used to be ships. And that is because, or that is the source of pikemen dealing bonus damage against ships. Because camels used to be ships, and in order to have the pikemen deal extra damage against camels, you had to have the pikemen dealing extra damage against ships. And that's a sort of legacy thing. A lot of these very, very old legacy things are there in Age of Empires. Anyways, this is a cleanup over here from Miguel. He absolutely massacred those mangonels over there, and there's the landing, but it is going to be spotted immediately as there is a counter landing attempted here. War galleys joining the fun as well. Monks could actually try to get a conversion in on those galleons, well, war galleys. One conversion actually does connect, and that's an absolutely failed landing over there from Miguel. D-Day in the effect, and well, the transport, I don't know what that actually is trying to do, but now I feel like Miguel's chances are actually getting worse and worse because Lix is having a 73 to 43 villager lead, and yes, Lix is slowly getting cleaned up, but he's massing camels. And what Lix could do now is potentially land over here and drop a castle himself. And remember that Miguel is still not having control over his entire island. And right now, what Lix is trying to do is just mass camels and take one decisive engagement over here. And here comes the transport. Camels, mangonels, monks will try to get a couple of conversions in here on those. Water is still really wacky, to be honest. Like, both players have some ships over here, but it's not a clear victory for either player. At this point, Miguel getting TC number 3 up over there. It's only 2 TCs for Lix, getting TC number 3 himself as well. Both players could afford a castle. In fact, Lix is getting closer to being able to afford the second one as well. And right now he's just waiting for the time to unpop those camels and surround those Organgas as well. That's actually a nice fight for Lix over there as well. Here come the camels from the other side too. You could delete that siege workshop so you can actually get a good surround on the Organgas. And Miguel is losing the Organgas really fast over here. The TC, I think, is going to go up, but many of those Organgas are very, very weak. And there is the castle from Lix. Look at that castle position. Now, is it actually deniable by the TC? I don't know, but there will be a lot of camels as well soaking up arrow fire, and they do a lot of damage against buildings, so they might even dive beneath that TC. And remember that Miguel is using up his gold mine over here, and one thing that we shouldn't underestimate is that this is a completely untouched gold mine that's going to be extremely valuable over the course of the game. Miguel could try getting some villagers out over here as well, to get the gold from the neutral island, as he kind of seems to have the water control right now, but it's still wacky, like camels killing the ships over here. There is some conversions as well, and let's see if we are going to see elephant archers, because now even if this castle didn't go up, if you look at the resources for Lix, he's about to go into Imperial. 92 villagers against 51, and that means that will be traps. That will be traps indeed. Lix clicking up to Imperial right now. Lix is an absolute beast when it comes to landings. And Miguel did the right things with the counter landing, but Lix was just so good with the aggression. And it is also not just the aggression, it is the boom behind. So it's not like he killed a lot more villagers than Miguel did. It's 12 villagers killed only, but the villager difference is 42. So behind this one, Lix also had a crazy good boom. So Mangonel is gonna get picked off by the fire ships, but as I said, Imperial Age is coming in, and I feel like at latest, when Imperial Age kicks in for Lix, Miguel is going to tap out another castle on the way, and I think Miguel will try a counter landing once again. The problem is that I feel like it is easier for Lix to do damage onto Miguel than it is for Miguel to do damage on Lix now. So I'm not sure what the plan exactly is with that transport, as now Miguel is trying to redock. I think Indians are missing fast fires. That's something that we took a look at the beginning of the game. So fast fires here isn't really going to be an option, and I think these villagers might actually go to this island. Nope. Are they going here, or are they going to Lix's island? Lix is getting outposts up on his own island, so he doesn't want some sneaky surprises from his opponent, as he's getting fletching and more stable. So fletching only for the castles, I assume. I was hoping for a couple of elephant archers, but that doesn't seem like it's gonna happen. And here is the sneaky castle from Miguel, and that is going to deny a stone mine, that's for sure. So the thing is that Lix right now cannot afford another castle for himself, and this could be pretty dangerous for him. So he might need to buy himself a castle here just for the sake of being able to trap that down. That being said, I feel like he's going to kill Miguel a little faster than Miguel can do damage to him. And indeed, right as Miguel sees his opponent being in Imperial, he's going to tap out and say, okay, it's over. Lix takes game number 2 or game number 3 as well, and he is having a 2-1 lead now. After Arabia was won by Miguel, now it's going to be match point for Lix, and we'll be going to the second home map of Miguel, which I think suits Lix a little more. And that's the funny thing. Miguel's home map was Islands, but when I was actually looking at that series, I was like, I think Islands is a place where I favor Lix more, because his playstyle Islands is extremely hard to stop. So that is because I actually had Lix higher on my list for Islands winners than Miguel. And I was right. So I get what Miguel was trying to do with, bringing Lix to an Islands game. But the thing is that Lix is absolutely crazy good on Islands. He's obviously not playing standard water by any means, but he's very, very good on Islands overall. So, Ornlu with the raid, what happened to you, man? Thank you so much for the raid. You have a class or something? Oh, look at that fancy partner badge in front of your name. Look at that. Someone is also famous now. Congrats, by the way, for that. Well deserved. Oh, you got an appointment? Oh, feels bad, man. Feels bad. So, give me a moment. I'll have to deal with something over here, but yeah, it actually does hurt. Alright. So yeah, congrats Orno once again. So, apologies, I had to just answer a pretty urgent message over here. So, as I said, I kind of felt like when we were going for islands, I had a feeling that Miguel could be in a tough time against Lix. But anyways, we are going to Gold Rush, which is the second home map of Miguel. In terms of remaining civilizations, what we have is Portuguese are gone for Miguel, and Indians are gone for Lix. Incas, Celts, Mayans remaining for Lix versus Tatars, Khmer, Cumans overall. So Mayans is very, very possible for Lix over here versus maybe Tatars with all the hills. Let's take a look. So we'll jump into the next game over here, and it is a Tatars versus Celts fight, which makes me wonder if we are going to see Mayans on Hideout, because that's the only place where I now can imagine Mayans being used. I would feel like that is... honestly, the alternative is that Mayans will not go used. And you could ask, why are you not using Mayans, which is one of the best civs in the game? And the answer is that he had Chinese at the beginning, but the thing is that you don't know what civ your opponent is going to snipe. And maybe he thought the Chinese will be sniped by his opponent for Arabia and he will go Mayans. But instead, Miguel sniped Japanese because of the islands map, and that means that Lix was left with Chinese and Mayans for Arabia, and he had to make up his decision. That is totally possible here. So maybe it is mind games that are behind this one, that he believed that he was going to lose Chinese anyways, so he picked Mayans as well for Arabia. But then Miguel decided that he wants to ban his opponent's island civ, by the way, because Japanese was probably going to be the island civ for Lix. It could have been good as well for Cross, but I feel like Lix probably would have gone for Japanese on islands instead, because with the stronger fishing ships, it would have been harder for Miguel to kill the fishing ships, which is a very, very nice addition to a landing gameplay. Alright, so we are gonna have Lix playing in blue as Celts on the right side. Miguel will be playing Tatars in red. According to Nerfox, the statistics say that so far, based on the previous round, Tatars have been picked 3 times in the round of 64 of qualifiers on Gold Rush, and they have a 2-to-1 win rate. So the sample size obviously is small, but obviously why you're picking Tatars here is mainly the hill bonus that you're getting. Also, this map can be very, very good for early castle age aggression, so the free thumb ring is extremely helpful. If you can get crossbows out with free thumb ring, you can potentially secure a position here on this ridge and go for a forward siege workshop and push your opponent's base. Something similar is the concept, I would say, for Celts, even though they can go for men-at-arms as well, potentially to surprise the opponent. But the idea is that eventually you will probably want the siege workshop up here and go for a Celtic push over there. So we'll see who gets control over the ridge, because that's going to be a crucial piece for this game for whoever is trying to win this. Alright, so looking at the bases of the players, this stone is actually very good for Miguel. Pretty much makes him able to defend against any potential trial rushes, which is not impossible from a player like Lix. So Celts can definitely go for a man-at-arms towers play here. So this stone is actually pretty good for that. Gold on the front is not nice. It's actually a very, very bad gold mine for him. Berries are also very exposed. And the other gold mine is... Don't tell. No way. This is the worst map generation I've seen for a player for a long time in what is a decider game, sort of. This is the other gold mine for Miguel. This is not even close to his base, man. Look at this. This is like out in the open, and it has to be his other gold mine because there is no neutral golds on the outside. So that's not a neutral gold. Each player started 4 tiles of gold and 3 tiles extra. Now, that being said, this gold is also very, very bad for Lix, but at least he has 1 safe gold at the back. But this is a disastrous gold mine for Miguel over there. And here comes what seems to be a Wolf Rush, I think. Interesting is the Polycite scan trick from Lix. So basically, he's trying to see if that lion moves to see if there is units coming that way, but that doesn't work in the newest patch. So maybe Lix didn't read the patch notes, which I assume is the case. And that doesn't work anymore. You don't see the wolf. I've shown this multiple times on stream. Even in Capture Age, you see that you don't see the wolf. I could show it in game as well, but you can also just believe me. And it doesn't work anymore, this Polycite scanning trick. This is a single militia opening from Miguel's, which means that he wants to just collect lions, most likely, and go for sort of a wolf rush. What that basically means that you collect the lions, send that militia over here, even delete the militia, and then have the wolves do the rest and kill villagers. So, indeed, here it comes. Collects the first one. And he will probably collect all of these before moving the other direction, or he will just settle with 4 as well. Yeah, that's something that is true Nerfox, that some people still use Policize to remember where the wolves are. That's totally true. What I don't understand in this case is that it's nice that you remember this lion, but you don't know about these. Although you could just say, okay, this is a patch of lions here, but you could have just placed that Policize over here then. So I'm not 100% sure if it's actually directly meant to just scan that lion, or if it's actually just meant to make Lix remember that there is actually stuff over there. Reaction is nice over here from Lix. Here come the Wolfies. There was a deletion, so Miguel is actually deleting the militia here, because that means that the lions will retarget and will actually attack the villagers. Reaction is very nice. Honestly, these wolf rushes are always very, very fun to look at, but they are probably almost completely useless. Unless your opponent has some very, very exposed berries, so his villagers are far away, these lions will barely kill anything. It's still worth trying, because 4 or 5 lions can probably cause just as much damage as a rush, and it seems like we're going to see a towers play from Lix here. As I said, it's not unheard of from a player like Lix to go for mana times towers with Celts, especially in a map that pretty much is screaming for a fast castle from Miguel, and also add the fact that Miguel's gold mines are absolutely horrendous. Now, Lix doesn't know this. In fact, Lix is pretty much... I assume that this was the game plan the whole time from Lix, because it's not like he sees the base layout of Miguel. So, he doesn't really know what to tower, he just wants to go for towers here, that's basically it. But, some other militias on the way as well, and Lix continuing to move forward. He was waiting for the man-at-arms to come in, or at least right now he's waiting for food to pile up for the man-at-arms upgrade. Field Mage is in for Miguel though, as he is going to play what appears to be a rush into archers from him. Here comes the first tower, and no man-at-arms upgrade from Lix though. That's a little surprising over here, because he could have easily gotten that, and that would have been a massive difference maker, to be honest. So, tower comes in, and indeed it's worth noting that, as I said, the gold mine for Miguel is very, very bad. If a tower goes up here, then Miguel will have basically no gold access. And it's something that's always worth keeping in mind. Luckily for Miguel, Lix doesn't know that the gold mines that he has are so bad. So I think Lix thinks that the gold mines are here at the back, instead of having it over here and all the way over here. So this is really lucky for Miguel over here, but I feel like he deserves that much luck after that absolutely awful gold mine that he started with. Anyways, that's tower versus tower, and the concern here for Miguel is that he might not have the chance to reroll this one very easily, and the man-at-arms might actually break through. He has a safe stone, something I pointed out at the beginning of this series, that it's going to be important. Over here, forward range for Lix coming in. What Miguel could do, as he's piling up archers inside that tower, is... first of all, diverting the archers indeed to clean up the men-at-arms over here. More importantly, he could actually get counterattack on Lix's base. Lix is actually very, very heavy on stone. He's got 5 on stone, so that's going to be another tower in the next couple of moments. This first one goes down, but the thing is that Miguel is also able to counter a tower in a matter of moments as well, although the fact that he still doesn't have the stone is actually pretty concerning, because I think he's going to lose that wood line. Even more important, the problem that he's going to be facing is that he's going to lose this part of his walls. And if this is broken through, Lix will just walk all the way around and start hitting the food eco. And this is going to turn into a food eco denial eventually. You already lost the berries, so if the next tower is up over here, Miguel is going to be in trouble. If you're Miguel, you drop a tower over here, because that would prevent the entry here, and it would be impossible for the man-at-arms to kill that. But Miguel is not doing that. Miguel is not making a tower. What are you doing, Miguel? If you don't make a tower here, you might lose the game. That is also an okay tower. The problem is that it also... Is it actually in the range of the TC? Yeah, it is. It's fine then for Miguel. I would have preferred it over here, but that's also an alright tower from Miguel. The reason why I dislike it a little bit is because if this tower goes down from Lix, he can rebuild it over here, and that will still deny a lot of farming space over here. Whereas this tower being placed over here would mean that Lix is unable to place his towers in this region, and that would secure that farming space for you. Anyways, the right way to play this one for Miguel is exactly what he's doing. Send a couple of archers to counterattack, and if you can hit that stone mine, that's going to be a jackpot. Basically, for him, he's got a very, very good scouting on the opponent's base. So he sees all the gold, he sees the berries, he sees the stone, and he sees the mining camp as well. So this could be villagers getting killed on the stone. And it seems like there is going to be a defensive tower there from Lix, but that may come in a little too late. Honestly, these archers do not have fletching. The tower is going to go up, but these aren't really doing a lot of damage. In fact, they're barely doing any damage. Don't ask me why Lix is chasing those archers with the villas, but these archers didn't do any damage, and the reason why is because probably Miguel was too busy fighting this one. Holy smokes, we haven't noticed this until now, and that is an absolute carnage. The tower did go down here from Lix, but that is a disaster. That is an absolute disaster. A lot of villagers are going down, and also the archers are going down from Miguel. And if you look at Miguel's food eco, he's got 5 on food. Another villager buys the dust. It's 4 to 5. 5 villagers kills now from Lix. Miguel only has 2 villagers killed. He could still try to hit this gold mine over here with the archers, but it seems like the people's champion will not be a champion in this one. Because right now Miguel's situation is really, really bad. So Lix isn't really thriving either. However, at least Lix is a consistent food eco. His eco is not directly under pressure right now. And the skirms and man-at-arms are working out really well for Lix. In fact, I could really justify a couple more man-at-arms here for Lix. Because Celtic man-at-arms are so good, and supported by skirmishers, the archers will have a tough time clearing that one up. It seems like Lix may just go back home now. Even indeed, he will wall in the towers, so he's gonna give up on this tower's aggression. Is he gonna give up on the tower's aggression, or is he gonna try and tower this gold mine? If he towers that gold mine, speaking of Lix, Lix still doesn't know about this extra gold here. But what he knows is that there is a gold here, and there could be some gold over here as well. So, archers are still around here, and Lix still has to be a little bit careful about his eco. And the eco kid is only 5 to 3, but Lix is a 4 villagers lead, pretty comfy for him. Both players do have double bit axe, but you also have to consider that the Celtic lumberjacking is also more efficient. And I guess the next push is going to be coming for this wood line. Remember that now, transitioning... Oh, Lix, that's so sloppy. That's so sloppy, not finishing the walls. Oh, man. That could potentially be very, very problematic for Lix. Because I think Miguel wants to buy himself up to Castle Age here. And I was just about to say that right now, Lix will transition into a wood denial play here. And if this tower was up, it would deny this wood line. This tower would deny this wood line, so it would be very hard for Miguel to access wood. But it's very, very sloppy from Lix not walling that tower in completely. And, well, it seems like Miguel is holding this, like this tower is gonna go down, most likely, although nice move from Lix, just positioning these archers in a way that he can actually kill the villagers. The tower is still going to go down, I believe, but Miguel will lose 2 or 3 villagers. Yeah, sort of. At the end of the day, this is a rather unfortunate but necessary trade for Miguel, who has 1 villager on wood right now. That being said, there are still archers here, so they could definitely run around and start hitting villagers on the farms, for example. Miguel is behind by 4 villagers only, that's the thing. So, theoretically, it seems like Lix is actually dominating this game. But if you look at the resources and if you look at the ecos, Miguel is not that much behind. In fact, I would dare to say that now he's ahead. 4 villagers is definitely a deficit that you don't like. However, he's almost ready to click into Castle Age, and just a couple of knights would absolutely smash everything, or even cav archers, crossbows with tumbling would be huge as well, and this tower also goes denied. So Miguel coming back in this one. We have a series for us. A little bit from Wolf Rush. Oh, look at that Wolf Rush now from Lix. He brought in like a huge amount of wolves over here. It's not really mattering that much, although now they will get triggered by the villagers on the farms. And the thing is that Lix might not be able to react to this one because he's too busy fighting on the front line. Indeed, look at this. He's not reacting to this. He's not reacting to the lions killing his will. Lions will kill that will right next to the TC. I was saying that Wolf Rush isn't really working. Apparently I was wrong. But that's one extra villager killed. Lix, a little bit of a market usage, so to say, as he's on the way to Castle Age as well. But I feel like now Miguel has survived the worst part. And he's gonna have the crossbow number advantage, and he could potentially use those crossbows to get a siege workshop up here. And push up this gold mine over there. Nice micro from Miguel as well. Sending in the scout to pick off the skirmisher, and there's going to be a forward stable from Lix, so he's going to try and get sort of a Huang push in, and I think something similar will be done by Miguel. There is no forward villager just yet. Multiple stables, in fact. The problem that Lix is facing right now is that Miguel is Tatars, so Miguel could actually make a couple of camos to defend against that one. And when these crossbows arrive, that's going to be pretty devastating for Lix's eco. Miguel not out of this game just yet. Here comes crossbow Botkin for him. And I think he wants a castle drop. Look at this. All this gold, or all this stone in the bank. Never mind, he's selling it. Or no, getting a TC up. Okay, that's fine. I was like, maybe he wants a castle in the middle, so he's going to have safe gold income. As crossbows now come in, and that's going to be a lot of food eco being denied from Lix, and it's also going to be a defensive tower forced on Lix's side. Other side, Miguel seems to be fine, adding Cav Archers now, no ballistics obviously for him, and even getting Town Watch, so he really wants to make sure if he's getting pushed. Lix going for a forward siege drop and knights over here. This is something that Miguel might not know about just yet. Yeah, he has no idea right now. However, he is still not far away from a castle, so even if he spots this, he's gonna be able to react, I think. He can send a couple more villagers to stone, and oh boy, if Miguel sees that, he could actually deny that siege workshop. Nope, too late for him. He might be able to deny the monastery though, which could still be important, because without the monastery, you can't convert the knights back that you have lost to Miguel's monks. More and more knights are on the way, but you can definitely pick those villagers off if you are Miguel. Nice micro so far from Lix, keeping those alive. It's 6 and 5 HPs. And it seems like Miguel will just be withdrawing over here with the Cav Archers, try to take a good heal for himself. Crossbows are still denying gold from Lix though, and Lix is running short on gold now. So he's got about 1,000, no less than 1,000 gold left to work with within his own base. So here comes Scorpions and Monks as well. Knights could be troublesome too, but on the other hand, Miguel is actually increasing his Cav Arch numbers quite nicely. Plus, now that you're getting the extra sheep for your town centers as well, and that is actually very helpful for Tatars too. Villager count is now completely even, as it seems like Lix is forced to bring back his knights all the way to the original base, and I think Lix or Miguel will just try to dive in and pick off one or two villagers over here, or camping the tower and take a couple more knights down. In the meanwhile, Cav Archers will actually try to go and pick off these villagers. The monk actually did a beautiful job healing this one. And let's see what Miguel can do in terms of micro. This is a tricky micro. Eats a huge scorpion shot over there. Loses 2 Cav Archers for, I think, what was 0 units killed at the end of the day. Miguel is still having the chance to drop a castle. Soon indeed sends 10 villagers to stone. So it's soon going to be a castle from him. The question is, where is that castle going up? I would think that you need a defensive castle on this side to just make sure that your opponent isn't able to push into your starting eco. Now, Miguel's food eco is absolutely awful. So 7 on food, you see that the farms aren't particularly being reseeded over here, as he's adding a mangonel himself against the mangonels of his opponent. And Lix, in the meanwhile, is slowly running out of his gold mine over here, and that is where it really starts being concerning for him. There is about 700 gold left over there. Anyways, Here comes the Scorpion push, firing down hills is Lix over here. It is extremely important for Miguel and Lix that right now the Tatar's player doesn't have the hill, even though it's a nice engagement, still getting some downhill shots from Tatar Cav archers, but is this enough? Many of those knights are dying and they do not have a plus, or they do have plus to defense, but they don't have bloodlines. So you have to wonder if this was cost efficient enough for Miguel, because he's losing this barracks. He's got the stone for a castle that has to go up over here. That has to go up right away, and you could even make a couple of Keshiks. The castle is coming up in the middle, which is an interesting decision. It makes sense from the perspective that you don't lose your gold income, but it's actually very, very bad from the perspective that you leave your entire eco over here completely exposed. And the thing is that gold income is important on Gold Rush, but it doesn't compensate you for losing all your wood eco, your stone eco, whatsoever. So Miguel is going to start losing villagers big time. Lix has 11 villager kills. Now it's 12, now it's 13, so it's going to rise really rapidly over here. Although the towers and the TC is actually doing a very nice job cleaning this one up, and that means that Miguel actually decides to counterattack potentially. TC is up here for Lix on this gold mine. And oh, that's still so bad for Miguel. He's losing way too many villagers. He's down to, well, just even villager count compared to Lix. This is a very, very messy game, I have to say. Because villagers are dying left and right from Miguel. However, because Lix is going full aggro, his eco wasn't really well developed, and now the Tarkav archer could actually come in here, still missing ballistics, which hurts so badly, because those cav archers will be killing a lot more if they had ballistics. Now, siege workshop over here as well, it seems like it has been stopped. Did I mention that I feel like it is actually more important to keep this part of your eco alive other than protecting this, because you have the cav archers here and potentially a siege workshop? I feel like Miguel could be in the trouble of potentially losing his starting TC here, and you see that he has a lot of idols. I feel like this castle should have been over here instead of over here. He could also make a couple of Keshik, because Keshiks are very, very cheap, and he could actually just dive in with a couple of Keshiks, try to snap the Mangonels over here. He's got a couple of camels, but with monks on the field, that is a nice snipe on the Mangonel. And Cav archers will pick off the monk. That's also a very nice move over there. Cav archers coming from the other side as well. Mangonel gets a pretty big shot over there, and there is no bloodlines on those Cav archers. They're dying way too fast. They're dying way too fast, and as I mentioned, it doesn't matter that you have the gold in the middle if you lose your starting eco. If this castle went up here, you could be defending here with a siege workshop and Cav archers, but without that, now you're seeing all this wood eco getting crippled and Lix climbing back into this game, and we have seen this so many times for Miguel. So many times in this series that he seemed like he's pulling ahead, but then he just let it out of his grasp. Like, if you remember the Arabia game, he was dominating, and then suddenly, because he kind of stopped making military and went too greedy, he actually started being overrun by units and almost lost the Arabia game because of that. He had a too big eco lead there to lose that one, but here it seems like, again, some somewhat questionable decisions could cause a lot of chaos for Miguel. Yeah, he's trying to get some raids in, but without ballistics, these cav archers aren't hitting anything. Miguel has been raiding left and right with the cav archers, and he killed a total of 7 villagers. Whereas his opponent is just brute forcing his way through him with knights, and this is basically flat out Hoang Rush over here. And the TC is down, which means that Miguel will be left with 1 town center that's on the middle, and 13 cav archers, 1 knight and 1 camel, versus increasing amounts of scorpions, mangonels, and knights over here. We are, I think, getting closer to Lix winning this one, and after the first Arabia game, yes, we have Uyo, thank you so much for the resub with the Prime. I greatly appreciate it. So, after the first Arabia game, I was skeptical about my prediction, because I went with 3-1 for Lix, and like, at the beginning of the series, I said 3-1 for Lix, and I think he's going to win Islands. I was right about Lix winning Islands, and it seems like 3-1 for Lix also seems a more and more likely scenario here. After the first game, I started to question my decision at going for 3-1 for Lix, because Miguel was pretty much stomping Lix, and you remember how the first game started? Lix lost so many villagers, and I said, this is not the Lix that we usually are used to seeing in tournaments, and I was right. The first game was an extremely sloppy one from Lix, but the following games, were much, much, much better. And that started to show, even the second game, but especially the Islands game and this one, those have been much, much better overall. He was able to surprise Miguel in a couple of ways, I think. Especially the tower rush is something that I don't think that Miguel necessarily expected on this map. Miguel had pretty bad gold mine spawns over here, but as I said, I feel like this castle should have gone over here instead, because Miguel actually evened the game out, and now we are seeing the same thing that we have seen on the Islands game. It is not necessarily about the push now, it's about the lead that Lix was able to secure thanks to this push. 72 to 48 villagers, and we're getting to a stage where Lix is probably going to drop a castle himself somewhere around over here. He might even attempt a castle here in the middle, and eventually he will think about Imperial. Obviously he will push for now because there is still a lot to kill, so there is no motivation for him to go into Imperial necessarily. Takes into the famous and well-renowned Celtic Elite skirms. But yeah, if you take a look at Miguel's eco, he's got 1 on food, which means that he's basically not making villagers for the majority of the game. Cav Archers actually running here, that's a nice one from Miguel, but once again, a couple of Cav Archers doing some raiding will not actually compensate for you having 48 villagers at 40 minutes of game time. And look at all this idle time, 243 for Miguel, 147 for Lix, and those are a lot of weak Cav Archers, look at that. Basically 3 Cav Archers, 4. Oh, Miguel. Miguel, it's 1 Cav Archer left over here. 1 on food for Miguel. And, I mean, these Cav Archers also getting intercepted, taking a rather inefficient engagement. They will take down the Knights, but the problem is that at this point, it seems like Lix's lead is going to be too big for Miguel to overcome that deficit. So just like in the first game, where Lix was unable to come back because Miguel had a so big eco lead, I think the same applies over here. Even though Miguel has the better army, Lix's base is well protected, so TC is controlling all key resources, so the Cav Archers can't really do a lot of raiding. And I think if this castle goes up, I think this is game over. And the Cav Archers will try denying, but there is multiple Mangonels and Scorpions here. Unless Miguel pulls a miracle here and stop this castle, he's going to be out of this game. If this goes up, it's guaranteed loss for Miguel. Firing down hills are the Scorpions. I don't think this is enough for Miguel. Yeah, he's trying to stop the castle, but he's throwing away his entire army in exchange. That being said, that's gonna be close to being a doubt castle. Mangonel goes down, and that is going up. That's game over. That's Omega game over there for Miguel. Because Lix is still 28 villagers ahead, and now Lix can think about, okay, I might just want to go Imperial, and just trap this one down. Cav Archers once again will try counterattack, but really, is this going to do anything? Probably not, and it won't compensate for all this damage that you have taken, and honestly, if Lix had 1 knight here, that would be 10 less villagers from Miguel. And Lix will also drop another castle indeed. Botkin on the way for him, for the elite skirms. So now I think Lix is just playing this one safe. So he doesn't really have to commit to anything more than what he's doing right now. So he's really just playing this one safe, going for all the Mangonels out here. Eventually, this game will be decided upon Lix actually having food eco and being able to go up into Imperial, whereas his opponent won't. And now the Knights will just dive in. A couple of Knights will get converted and the Mangonels will probably go down. But at this point, I think Lix is more than happy to trade off Knights to Villagers, because his opponent has like absolutely no eco left in a matter of moments. And as I said, Lix hasn't even spotted Miguel's 8 Villagers here on the left. And, well, eventually the Knights get cleaned up, but it's not like Lix cannot replace his army. In fact, Lix is a much easier time replacing his army than his opponent is, because now it's 2-1 Villager lead for Lix, and it seems like the next player to leave the tournament will be Miguel. The Brazilian will be unable to qualify for Hidden Cup 4. I don't know if there is prize money associated with losing in the second round. There is definitely prize money for losing in the third round, but I have no idea if Miguel is actually getting any prize money here. As there's the second castle, and I think we will have to wait a maximum of 3 minutes until Miguel calls it. So when Imperial Age starts to go up, For Lix, that's 3 minutes countdown. And when Imp hits, then Miguel will definitely tap out because he knows that he's going to lose this position to traps immediately. So in 3 minutes, Miguel is going to resign. I can tell you this much. $100 for this round, $200 for next one. So Miguel is going to get a little bit of prize money over here. One of the things, and one of the positives of Hidden Cup having this big prize pool is that players in the qualifiers also get some prize money. That's not very, very common in the most events. However, the budget for Hidden Cup 4 is big enough to allow, I think, a combined prize pool of $2,500 for the players that played in the qualifiers but didn't get to the main event of the game. Obviously, all of these players wanted to get to the main event. However, the fact that there is prize money for the qualifiers actually makes it very, very good for players that were unlikely to qualify, but they were close to qualifying. So, anyways, it is a big ramp push here from Miguel. Will this change anything? It won't. I can tell you this much, it won't change anything. So, yeah, this TC is going down. Lix will just send his Voyagers over here on this hill, or this hill, doesn't matter. So yeah, it absolutely is. It makes you work your time even if you don't qualify. Although, as I said, it's like qualification by definition is an event where you're trying to get to the prize money event by itself. So there is different ways to interpret this, I would say. You could argue that, hey, you know, qualification is there to select the people who will be eligible to play in a prize money event. Or you could argue that indeed you have your time and that is worth something. I feel like it is good that the qualifiers give you some prize money, so I totally agree with that, but it is also budget dependent, so I don't think it is something that can or should be a standard for tournaments, because obviously Hidden Cup has a big enough budget to be easily able to fit in a couple thousand, I think maximum $3,000-ish for the qualifiers. Other tournaments with lower budgets are probably gonna have less qualifiers being played. It looks like we're gonna have Elite Skirms from Lix, which do not have Bracer, by the way, so they're not really amazing. But I don't know what Miguel is hoping, and I honestly don't know. Maybe he doesn't know he's that much behind, but come on, man. You are up against Elite Skirms, and as I said, eventually you will lose this castle, so I really don't know what he's hoping. I feel like if this wasn't the final game, or potentially the decider game, he would already be tapping out. So he's losing all the Cav Archers right now to the Elite Skirms, because these are Castle Age Cav Archers, and it's against Castle Age Elite Skirms, so Elite Skirms actually do melt them. Look at that absolute massacre. That was like 3 or 4 Skirms lost to 6-8. CA, there is a couple of unprotected Rams heading this way, but I mean, eventually you will just get overrun by Rams and Habadi's Void Raiders. He's really trying to raid his way back into this game, but this is exactly like the first game. Just the other way around. In the first game, Lix tried everything to get himself back into the game, but the game was just way too far gone by the time he actually started pushing. So yeah, that castle is going down. If the castle goes down, then that probably means that Miguel is going to be running out of gold over there. There's a couple of Rams, but you can just send 2 Warriors to clean that one up. And Battering Ram also trying to take down over here. The thing is that Lix is somewhat struggling to finish this game off, to be honest. That's for sure. But even without that, this isn't really going to matter that much, I believe. Like, PC is going to go down and the Cav Archers are melting way too fast to the Elite Skirms. Or you can just play full Void Raider with the Imp Rage upgrades. Now, Lix... this is so weird. Right in the moment where Miguel actually started destroying buildings, and I was like, hey, Lix, you have to react to that. Miguel taps out. So, well, here is the GG. And that means that Lix is the one advancing to the next round. And I was right about my prediction at the end of the day. 3-1 in the favor of Lix over here. The People's Champion, Miguel, leaves with $100 prize pool and a round of 32 finish in the qualifiers for Hidden Cup 4. He has definitely stepped his game up compared to his previous self in Definitive Edition, but I still think that compared to the other players, Miguel was Miguel was on a higher level when it was on Wobbly. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but he actually played in the main event of Hidden Cup too. So he was top 16 around that time. As you see over here, it may be just him still being a little rusty, or it could be other players improving a lot faster than he is. But at the end of the day, he isn't able to qualify and loses to Lix in the second round. And Lix will march on, and he's just one series away from qualifying into the main event of Hidden Cup 4 and potentially getting a second Chinese player into the main event alongside Mr. Yo. Anyways, if you were watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching.